Important update about YouTube playlists. Hey everyone. We've received many messages asking why our YouTube playlists aren't showing up. Do we create YouTube playlists? Yes, we absolutely do. So why can't you see them? Honestly, we're not sure. We've been in contact with YouTube support for several months now, but we still haven't received a clear answer or solution. After much discussion, our team has decided to take matters into our own hands. We believe the issue might be related to the number of playlists we've created on a single channel, possibly too many. Our solution? We're launching 2 additional YouTube channels, giving us a total of 3. This way, we can organize our audiobooks better and avoid the playlist visibility issue in the future. This change only affects our YouTube audience. If you're a patron supporter, you can still access all our audiobooks by visiting the collection menu on Patreon. Thanks so much for your time and continued support. Happy listening, right in front of everyone. Rhodes felt like he must have saved the entire world in a previous life. How else could he be so lucky to meet someone as wonderful as Myra? The crowd erupted again into cheers and playful jeers. Shy guild members covered their eyes, though their fingers suspiciously remained spread wide. Myra nestled comfortably into Rhodes' embrace and waved cheerfully at everyone alongside him. Thank you all for your blessings and for being our witnesses. Makarov, smiling warmly, announced in his hearty voice. To celebrate Rhodes successfully proposing and Myra accepting, let's throw a party. Yeah. Party. Came the enthusiastic response. The guild instantly buzzed with excitement. Usually, jealousy might have surfaced, but today everyone genuinely shared in their happiness. The waitresses, led by Lucky, exchanged triumphant smiles, feeling as though the couple they'd always rooted for had finally made it official. Meanwhile, the older crowd, led by Macau, grumbled jokingly. Just proposing now? Here we thought they'd been married forever. Gray, having finally caught up with events, looked stunned. Wait, Rhodes actually proposed to Myra? Seriously? Proposing to Mara Jane the she-devil, was Rhodes fearless or just crazy? Juvia flushed brightly, whispering shyly. So, he proposed to her in front of everyone. He's so brave. She glanced hopefully at Gray. Gray, Juvia wishes she could also. Maybe. Someday. Her voice trailed off to barely a whisper, leaving Gray straining to hear. Huh? What did you say? Imagining some happy future, Juvia was suddenly overcome with shyness, collapsing onto the floor and rolling around bashfully with her face buried in her hands, squealing softly. Juvia Gray sighed, wondering why Master Makarov ever assigned him to watch over such a troublesome woman. He discreetly stepped away from Juvia and happily joined in the festivities. It had to be said, this was truly fairy tale. Once the party began, everything else was quickly forgotten. Suddenly, reporters and interviews didn't seem important anymore. By the time Rhodes and Myra stepped down from the small stage, more than half the guild members had already forgotten the original reason for the celebration. Even the 2 main characters had slipped their minds. Rhodes seriously began to wonder if, when he and Myra eventually had their wedding at home, these people might forget why they had gathered and inadvertently demolish the house. Indeed, he concluded, weddings were better held at the guild hall. The new guild building was solid and sturdy, capable of handling all their antics. Rhodes approached Makarov as soon as he stepped down and apologized. I'm sorry, Master. We had planned for Myra to perform for the interview, but I messed it up. Nonsense, isn't his better? Makarov chuckled warmly, looking fondly at them both. So, have you 2 set a date yet? They glanced at each other, Myra touching her cheek shyly. We haven't had time to discuss that yet. Really? Makarov sipped his wine with a contented sigh. No rush, then. He was genuinely happy, primarily because he loved seeing his children earnestly seeking their own happiness. Of course, another reason for his happiness was that Myra was in such high spirits today, she didn't even bother lecturing him about his drinking. Myra truly was overflowing with joy. She'd always imagined Rhodes waiting until he had enough jewels, quietly buying a house and a proper ring, and then surprising her with a proposal and marriage all at once. He could be so stubborn, always insisting on everything being perfect. She hadn't expected Master to arrange for her to perform today and for Rhodes' proposal to become the big surprise. If she'd known, she might have blocked his door and sung to him herself. Her heart was bursting with happiness, so much that she wasn't even sure what to do next. Wearing a blissful smile, she wandered around the guild hall with Rhodes, who had just upgraded from boyfriend to fiancé, feeling like a bride and groom greeting their guests. Big sis, congratulations. Elfman was bawling like a child. Honestly, why are you crying so hard when I'm the one who just got proposed to? Your sleeves are soaked. Myra teased gently, releasing Rhodes briefly to tug affectionately at Elfman's sleeve. I'm just so happy for you, sis. Elfman sobbed openly. This is what a real man does. With one sleeve held by Myra, He used his other sleeve to wipe his tears. In truth, he and Lisanna had once worried their big sister might never find someone suitable, though they'd never dared voice that fear aloud, afraid Myra might clobber them. At times, they'd even thought it wouldn't matter if Myra remained single, the three of them could just stay together forever, looking after each other. But now Lisanna was gone, and Elfman often feared he couldn't care for Myra well enough on his own. Seeing Myra finally find someone to share her life with was an immense relief. Rhodes. Elfman sobbed again, his voice earnest. Please take good care of my sister. This is a real man's request. I promise I'll do everything I can to cherish her and make her happy. Rhodes replied sincerely. Rhodes wrapped one arm around Myra's shoulders and attempted to include Elfman in the embrace. Myra fit easily, but Elfman, his soon-to-be brother-in-law, was just too big and awkward, not cooperating at all. Manly. Elfman roared, unsure whether he was responding to Rhodes' gesture or simply carried away by his earlier sentiments. Tears still streaming down his cheeks, Elfman enveloped both Rhodes and Myra in a hearty bear hug. Sister, Rhodes, congratulations. Manly. As expected from the man known as the Beast King, Elfman's hug was so powerful it felt as though he might crush the bones of the two people wrapped in his arms. Fortunately, Rhodes and Myra weren't ordinary people, so being hugged by an overly emotional brother wasn't too troublesome. Rhodes even found himself joking. You still haven't called me brother-in-law. Sister. Brother-in-law. Rhodes smiled immediately, having waited a long time to hear that particular title. Myra gently pulled her hand free, playfully patting Rhodes, and hugged both men. Lucy, finally recovering from her emotional daze, noticed everyone was fully absorbed in the festive atmosphere, completely ignoring Jason, the reporter. This was her chance. Jason was kneeling and trembling slightly at the edge of the stage. He must be upset by the sudden interruption and everyone's indifference, right? Now is the perfect moment for me, Fairy Tale's top rookie candidate and strong contender for most beautiful female wizard, to step in. If she could successfully grab Jason's attention, provide him valuable news, and even charm away any dissatisfaction he might have toward the guild, then she'd become a key contributor, maybe even land a prominent feature in Weekly Sorcerer, and become a famous wizard known nationwide. With her plan in motion, Lucy walked elegantly toward Jason, certain she'd find a furious expression awaiting her. Choosing her words carefully, she spoke in a soft, gentle voice. I'm really sorry for this rudeness, our guild. As Lucy spoke, she bent down slightly and extended her hand to help Jason up. However. Cool. 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 Jason shouted with excitement. His face wasn't red from anger but sheer exhilaration. The fairy strategist had proposed successfully and was now engaged to the renowned model and she-devil, Mara Jane. This was spectacular news. He was so thrilled, he leapt up from the floor with fists pumping the air. Unfortunately, Lucy was the unintended victim. She was still leaning forward, so Jason's fist caught her squarely on the chin, sending her sprawling backward. A small, ghostly white soul drifted comically from Lucy's mouth, tears streaming down her face. Why does this always happen to me? Chapter 413, Dilemma for Jason. Being overlooked wasn't a big deal. In fact, he preferred being completely ignored whenever he wasn't conducting interviews. That way, he could witness Fairy Tale in its most genuine, chaotic state. Although Jason had dutifully written down Master Mikarov's polite but somewhat stiff speech, he had no intention of actually using it. What he truly wanted was to see the guild's usual lively chaos, the messy tavern, Grace tripping unconsciously, Nazi breathing fire and causing trouble, and wizards spontaneously breaking into fights. Even if someone excitedly punched him in the face, he'd shout cool, and continue scribbling notes furiously from the ground. Before Lucy could even stand up properly, she clung desperately to Natsu's legs. Natsu, don't hit Mr. Reporter. Natsu dragged Lucy along with him. But he always writes bad stuff about me. Saying I destroyed this, destroyed that, and destroyed something else again. Lucy protested loudly. Because you really do destroy things every single day. I don't care. Natsu snapped back. It was another rowdy day at Fairy Tale, and Jason enthusiastically joined in, happily spending his day amidst the noise and laughter. Eating, drinking, brawling, photographing, and scribbling down notes. This was the first time Jason had conducted an interview this way, feeling as if he had become an honorary member of Fairy Tale. In his own words, this guild was just too cool. Jason decided he would show the magazine readers the real Fairy Tale, making sure everyone fell in love with this amazing guild just as he had. As the party wound down, Jason remembered he'd promised Rhodes to interview some newcomers before he left, inspiring him to add an entirely new newcomer spotlight column. He interviewed Tano, Lucy, and Juvia individually. Each had joined the guild recently, and took plenty of photos. Unfortunately, Gagiel wasn't present, So Jason learned a bit more about the former Phantom Lord Element 4's reasons for joining Fairy Tail through Juvia. This sparked another idea. Perhaps next week, he could investigate what the other former Phantom Lord members were doing? Jason was brimming with energy and ideas. Another night at Fairy Tail stretched well past midnight. This guild truly loved parties, which always seemed to continue noisily until dawn. When Rhodes woke up, he found himself comfortably nestled in Myra's arms, her hands draped around his neck, resting gently on his chest. As soon as he stirred, Myra noticed and smiled softly. "You're awake? Did you sleep well? I didn't expect to fall asleep like this." Rhodes chuckled. Sitting up, he quickly realized Myra's head had been resting on Elfman's chest. They'd ended up falling asleep in an awkward trio. "Are you tired?" Rhodes asked gently. Myra shook her head lightly and happily showed Rhodes her left hand. "Look, it's a gift from my fiancé. Isn't it lovely?" "It's beautiful, really beautiful." Rhodes replied warmly, gently caressing her hand and a wooden ring. Seeing Myra's radiant smile, he paused thoughtfully. "Maybe we should buy a new ring soon. If you wear this all the time, someone might laugh at you." Myra swiftly withdrew her hand, clenching it into a fist, eyes flashing fiercely. "If anyone dares a laugh at me, I'll twist their head off." Rhodes grinned affectionately. Truly a terrifying demon. Myra was about to say something when she heard Elfman mumble. "So scary." The two of them paused, looking curiously at Elfman, who was leaning against the wall. He tilted his head slightly, his features scrunched in pain, murmuring words like sister and scary. Myra felt a mix of concern, amusement, and mild annoyance, wondering if her brother deserved some comfort or if she'd perhaps been too harsh on him in the past. "It's because there was pressure on his chest, he probably had a nightmare," Rhodes said gently, hugging Myra to defend his brother-in-law. "I had pressure on me too, why didn't I have a nightmare?" "You're different from him. One had a buffer, and the other didn't." Myra thought about it briefly, then playfully punched Rhodes on the chest. "Go wash up and get to work." Morning chores were always tedious, especially after a night of celebration. But now there were enough guild members around to handle tasks quickly. Rhodes' first job was to wake everyone up. He walked to the stage, found the drum set that hadn't been cleared away from yesterday, picked up the drumsticks, and began hitting them randomly. As someone with no musical talent, he especially loved clashing the cymbals together. It was exhilarating. "What the heck? Who is making that racket? It's too early for this." Groggy guild members stumbled awake, grumbling and rubbing their eyes as they realized they were in a guild hall, not at home. "Oh no. I promised my wife I'd be home last night." The married members, led by Wakaba, bolted out of the guild in a panic. Others turned their irritation toward Rhodes. "Rhodes, what's your problem? We were celebrating you yesterday." "That's right, and now you're causing chaos so early in the morning." Rhodes chuckled and put down the drumsticks. All right, I'll remember your kindness forever. But it's time to get moving. The tavern is opening soon. If you need to go home, go. If you need to work, get started. And if you're still angry, feel free to beat me up later. I promise I won't fight back." But he couldn't promise the same for his fiancée. Grumbling but understanding, everyone slowly got up, straightened their clothes, and adjusted themselves. Some headed home, others checked the notice board, and a few sat down at tables, immediately ordering breakfast. The more diligent ones even started rearranging the furniture. Of course, there were still those like Natsu who slept soundly. Who knew how he managed it, feet up on the table, rear on a stool, head sprawled awkwardly on the ground, making anyone who saw him worry about potential blood rushing to his head. "Natsu, wake up." Loki, who was about to clean the area, gently pushed Natsu but couldn't wake him. "Let me handle this." Rhodes summoned Warm and, without giving Warm time to react, he picked him up and tossed him onto Natsu. Bang. Crack. The long bench couldn't withstand the weight and snapped in half. Pinned beneath Warm, Natsu could only make muffled noises, waving his limbs helplessly. Loki covered her mouth, stifling laughter. Rhodes could really be ruthless when teasing Natsu. Warm, however, was kind-hearted. He quickly climbed off Natsu, licked his face as a form of apology, then trotted over to Myra for some food. "What was that for, Rhodes?" Natsu jumped up and lunged at Rhodes. Rhodes didn't back down, eagerly engaging in a playful morning scuffle. Their tussle moved from the middle of the tavern toward the entrance, only stopping when Riza grabbed Natsu by the collar. "Enough, Natsu, don't disturb everyone's work." Rhodes found himself gently embraced from behind by Myra. "Honestly, why are you fighting with Natsu, too? I haven't beaten him up in a while, and my fists were itching." Rhodes said teasingly. "What did you say? I'm always the one beating you." Natsu protested loudly. "Check your black eyes before you talk. You jerk. I'll make you pay for that." The two childish rivals were separated amid laughter, officially marking the start of another lively day. "I didn't expect Rhodes to fight with Natsu like that," Lucy commented. After freshening up at home and changing into clean clothes, Lucy returned to the guild. She had missed their energetic morning battle, seeing only Natsu's bruised eyes. Myra smiled, polishing a glass behind the counter. Rhodes often sparred with Natsu in the past, usually losing. Only recently has he started getting the upper hand. In just over a year, Rhodes had transformed remarkably from a complete novice into a formidable wizard. Myra's earlier admiration had now turned into genuine pride. "Oh, that's incredible." Lucy rested her chin thoughtfully. "When will I become that strong?" "Want to try Rhodes' training method?" Myra teased, recalling some amusing memories. "It's not too extreme at first, you only need to get beaten once or twice a day." "No, thanks." Lucy quickly declined. She had her own approach to training. "Could you recommend a good job for me instead? I still owe you money." "Don't worry about that. I'll keep an eye out for something suitable," Myra reassured her. "Also, although I'm not sure about Natsu's progress, Riza isn't working as a waitress anymore. You could team up with her." "That's a great idea." Lucy brightened. Teaming with Riza would mean they could handle tougher quests. Just as Lucy headed to the job board, Rhodes called out to her. "Lucy. Do you want to check in on your family?" "Huh? I just came from home. I mean the Hartfilia family," Rhodes clarified gently. Lucy looked surprised and puzzled. "Why would you ask that?" Rhodes handed her the morning newspaper. "Take a look. It seems the Hartfilia concern is having some difficulties." Lucy wanted to say her family's company was no longer her concern, but her compassionate nature prevailed. She accepted the newspaper and read carefully. "Financial trouble," she murmured softly. Lucy recalled her last visit home, when her father had tried arranging her marriage to secure a business alliance in the South. Her expression grew worried, but she eventually returned the newspaper to Rhodes. "It's all right. If there's anything I know about him, it's his business capabilities. Even if I returned, he'd only say I'm interfering. She couldn't help financially, anyway, not with the kind of money required." Did she really need to marry a stranger just for the sake of her father's business ambitions? Chapter 414, Jell's Whereabouts, News from the Council. Lucy patted her cheeks to cheer herself up. "Let's go and discuss the mission with Riza now." Lucy had no intention of sacrificing her happiness for her father's business ambitions. For her, the wealth or poverty of the Hartfilia family didn't matter. The only thing of real significance in that house was her mother's grave. Ultimately, the three of them selected a mission to defeat a dark guild. Yes, 3 people. Natsu initially intended to continue training, but since his sparring session with Rhodes hadn't fully satisfied him, he decided joining a real mission would let him fight some more. Happy didn't participate in the decision-making as he was busy feasting with Worm in the kitchen. Visually speaking, Worm had become so plump he could barely squeeze through the kitchen door, though luckily, his fluffy fur and soft body helped. The cook, who observed Worm growing fatter each day, seemed delighted, exhibiting the satisfaction of someone whose livestock was nearly ready for slaughter. Thus, the cook enthusiastically continued feeding Worm. If not for everyone's collective effort, Rhodes wondered how much strain his wallet would have endured. Raising a pig wasn't easy, and Worm ate even more than any pig he'd ever seen. Rhodes quickly organized today's job requests, posting them individually on the bulletin board before settling quietly nearby to watch Myra calculate yesterday's finances. Myra glanced at him but said nothing, continuing her work. After finishing, she stretched comfortably. Rhodes admired the sight, quite impressed. "Why aren't you off reading a book?" Myra suspected he wanted something. "Books aren't as interesting as you." "Stop talking nonsense. I need to leave soon. Mr. Cook asked me to buy some supplies." "Hold on a second." Rhodes gently held her hand, stroking the finger with the wooden ring. "We should talk about marriage." Myra's cheeks turned rosy again. "Marriage. What about it?" "The date. The master asked yesterday, but we didn't have an answer. Now that we're free, let's discuss it." Myra playfully pouted. "You weren't in such a hurry before proposing. Why the rush now?" Rhodes scooted his stool closer, leaning into her gently. "Times have changed. Who wouldn't want to bring such a beautiful wife home as soon as possible? You're quite the charmer." Myra tilted her head, briefly resting it on his shoulder. Realizing it wasn't appropriate at the moment, she quickly stood straight again. "We'll talk more later. I'll give you plenty of time to prepare properly this time." Myra glanced around cautiously, seeing no one watching, and softly kissed his cheek. Picking up her bag with a cheerful smile, she added, "I'm going shopping now. Drive our luxury ride." Rhodes called out playfully, summoning the crab. He said it with the confidence of a husband offering his wife a Ferrari for grocery shopping. He couldn't accompany Myra. Master Mikarov had left early that morning to gather important news, and someone needed to remain at the guild. It wasn't until late afternoon, approaching dinner, that Mikarov finally returned with two significant pieces of news, though it was unclear if they were good or bad. The first news was that Jel had been captured. Just yesterday, fishermen from the kingdom of KLM had found Jel drifting in the sea. After pulling him onto their boat and confirming he was barely alive, they quickly brought him to a nearby coastal clinic. However, he was soon recognized as a dangerous criminal who had posed as a council member. Immediate basic first aid was provided, and authorities were notified. Normally, such a criminal would be handed over to the Magic Council, but since the council had not yet resumed normal operations, Jella was transferred to the Royal Guard's custody, imprisoned in the kingdom's most secure facility. Further details remain scarce, and given his severe injuries, he might still be undergoing emergency medical treatment. The second news related directly to the Magic Council. First, the person who directly destroyed the Era headquarters was identified as Alter. Her current whereabouts remained unknown. Both Alter and Jell were officially dismissed from their council positions. After a thorough review, former council chairman Crawford Seam was found negligent for allowing Jell and Alter to infiltrate the council. Additionally, Crawford was deemed derelict in duty for failing to attend the emergency council meeting and not stopping the firing of Etherian, nearly enabling Jell's destructive plan. Due to these offenses, Crawford was dismissed from his position. However, considering his many years of contributions to the magical community, no further punishment beyond dismissal was imposed, allowing him to retire peacefully. Of the remaining 7 council members, 6 hastily approved firing of Etherian upon merely hearing Zeref's name, raising suspicions of potential complicity. These councillors would undergo a detailed investigation. Half had already resigned from guilt, though a thorough inquiry was still necessary. Yajima was the only council member who consistently opposed the use of Etherian. Consequently, he was cleared from suspicion swiftly. Some even suggested that Yajima remain in office to assist in reorganizing and rebuilding the new Magic Council. But Yajima declined the offer, stating that he had reached retirement age and was stepping down. Before leaving, however, Yajima recommended that they consider appointing Org. Although Org frequently clashed with Fairy Tail and often sought to punish them for causing trouble, his disagreements with Yajima stemmed from differing views, not ill will. It was precisely because of their many debates that Yajima came to respect Org's earnest approach to his work, his unwavering integrity, and his genuine concern for the common people. Yajima no longer wished to get involved in politics. He simply hoped to use his savings to open a small restaurant and enjoy the peaceful life he'd always wanted. That's the update they've sent me. Mikarov concluded. He couldn't help but envy Yajima a little. His old friend had finally retired, while he himself still had plenty of worries on his shoulders. Anyway, there's no clear timeline for when the Magic Council will resume normal operations. We'll have to continue managing regional order ourselves. Which means our next routine coordination meeting. And don't give me that look, it's important. I know, I'll go with you. Rhodes replied. But either before or after that, you've got to give us a few days off. Why are you always asking for vacation time? We need money to prepare for the wedding. You don't want Myra and me embezzling guild funds, do you? Mikarov was silent. But deep down, he didn't entirely oppose the idea. After all, the guild's funds were often used to temporarily advance mission payments, with members slowly repaying over time. If Rhodes and Myra urgently needed funds, letting them borrow a bit would be fine. Neither of them would ever default. In fact, most of the guild's day-to-day power had already shifted into the hands of the younger generation. If the two really wanted to, they could probably empty the entire guild's vault and no one would notice until it was too late. Wait. Master. What's with that look? It's creeping me out. Rhodes said nervously. Why do you look so pleased at the idea of us embezzling guild funds? Rhodes couldn't help but suspect he was imagining it. But he really wasn't sure. Chapter 415, Purgatory Dragon. After a moment of silence, Mikarov finally spoke. You can take time off, but not just yet. Why not? I may need your help with the investigation regarding the Tower of Heaven. I already wrote a report. I'll send it out soon. That's not enough. Can you guess what day it is today? September 23rd. The month's almost over, but we still have, wait. Rhodes paused as realization hit him. Ah. The Harvest Festival is coming. Early October marked the annual Harvest Festival, the most important event for Magnolia and Fairy Tail alike. In the coming 2 weeks, guild members out on missions would start returning, and with them, a backlog of tasks would pile up. Rhodes considered rounding up some strong hands from the guild to deal with the upcoming wave of work, or squeezing in a few jobs himself to earn a bit of extra money. Besides, with the council currently inactive, you don't even have to write self-reflections. You should have more free time to help with daily guild affairs. Who said I don't have to write? Just because the council's inactive doesn't mean it's gone. I'll still need to submit everything once they're back in action. I'm very busy. How busy could you be? Don't you always procrastinate until the deadline anyway? Nonsense. I'm just thinking things through. Sure you are. Seriously, I am busy. Right. Got it. At the headquarters of Grimoire Ironheart, Master Hades was speaking into a crystal ball. Did you retrieve it? The figure within the crystal ball was none other than the missing altar. Yes. I acquired it while the council was in chaos. He. 8 years of planning, and everything is going exactly as intended. You've done well, altar. It was quite entertaining. Jello was so adorable. In all those years, he never realized I was the one pretending to be the voice of Zeref's ghost. That's the beauty of influencing someone from a young age. They're so much easier to mold. But I heard Jello was captured. You might be implicated. We should avoid unnecessary attention for now. Let's leave the next steps to our allies. Weren't the Orishins searching for that artifact? The council's archives contained quite a bit of useful information. Then I'll leave the rest to you. Yes, Master Hades. The communication ended. Ultra played idly with the crystal ball, murmuring. It's easiest to brainwash someone when they're still little. She smirked. Is that so, Master Hades? That night, under the soft glow of a crescent moon, Rhodes and Myra rode out of the city atop a river crab. The master had refused to join them, grumbling about something. In any case, they had already summoned one dragon. Summoning another didn't seem like a big deal anymore. Where are we heading this time? Myra asked as she curled up in Rhodes' arms, finding the coziest spot to lean. Let's head to the usual place. Rhodes replied, wrapping an arm around her waist. His other hand slipped beneath her shirt and began tracing gentle circles around her belly button. Myra didn't stop him. In fact, she placed her hand over his, enjoying the warmth and comfort. Especially when she had stomach aches, she could spend the whole day with him rubbing her belly like this. Isn't it kind of far? Yeah. Rhodes nodded. But thinking about the ruckus that mountain dragon caused last time, we'd better go even farther this time. The moonlight was faint, and the farther they got from town, the darker the night became. Fortunately, the scuttle crab had excellent night vision and moved swiftly. It carried them to their destination in no time. The crater ruins left behind from the last time the mountain dragon departed still lay scattered in the area. Wind and rain had swept through recently, and now tufts of weeds had begun growing between the stones. Though it had only been 2 or 3 months, nature was already reclaiming the rubble. Let's do it here, Rhodes said, hopping down from the river crab. Myra looked at him, surprised. Noticing she hadn't followed, Rhodes asked. What's wrong? Oh, right. Smiling at the thought of his delicate and lovely fiancée, Rhodes extended a hand. Come on, I'll carry you down. It's nothing. Myra replied, a little surprised. Rhodes used to accidentally slip his hand a lot before, but today he was being unusually well behaved. Still, she wrapped her arms around his neck and didn't refuse the offer to be carried. Ready? Rhodes said, waiting for her to get her footing. Then he took 2 steps forward and lifted his pendant. Summon, Blue Sentinel, Mountain Dragon. A towering golem, 4 to 5 meters tall, materialized. It immediately bestowed blue buff on Rhodes. Seeing that there were no enemies nearby, it instinctively added 1 to Myra as well. This was routine during sparring sessions. Rhodes never relied on mana regeneration to gain an unfair advantage over Myra. Then the massive form of the mountain dragon emerged, appearing groggy as though it had just been awoken from a nap. Sensing the change in atmosphere, the mountain dragon lifted its head and gave a slow shake. Its broad snout twisted into an expression of mild exasperation. Why not just summon him directly? Why bother me? I figured I should check if you two have already communicated. We're practically sleeping in the same nest. What do you think? The mountain dragon's form started to fade, becoming translucent. Hurry up. That guy's got a short fuse. If you take too long, he might come out yelling about how he's going to pummel you. To be fair, sleeping in the same nest wasn't entirely accurate. Rhodes could perceive the dragon pit clearly. It was a split cavern in the canyon. One side was earthy and khaki-colored, with a yellow stone symbol on the wall where the mountain dragon lay dozing. The other side blazed red, with a flame-shaped mark seared into the rock. A crimson dragon stood on that side, fire radiating from its form. The 2 halves of the dragon pit seemed clearly divided, each side respecting the other's space. This made Rhodes worry slightly about the future. If more dragons were summoned, would they end up clustered together like void mites, constantly bumping into each other? Judging from the mountain dragon's earlier tone, the next one might not be in the best mood. Rhodes gave Myra a reassuring look, then gripped his pendant and spoke the full incantation. I am. Summon, Purgatory Dragon. Whoosh. As magic flared, It felt like a blast of hot wind erupted outward. The air around them turned scorching. The weeds atop the rubble dried up in an instant, then ignited and crumbled into ash. Ang! A thunderous roar echoed across the plain, blazing heat radiating from the swirling flames now burning before them. Even the ground began to smolder and crackle, transforming the once neutral field into a scene out of a fiery underworld. Rhodes and Myra quickly leapt onto the sentinel's shoulders. It backed up more than 10 meters to give them some distance. From that safer vantage point, they could finally get a proper look at the new behemoth. The Purgatory Dragon had a body similar in shape to the Mountain Dragon, but its coloring was a deep, searing red, exuding intense heat like it was forged from flowing magma. Its neck, chin, and wings were as black as obsidian, gleaming like cooled volcanic glass against the molten red of the rest of its body. It flapped its massive wings, sending waves of heat rolling outward. But the infernal dragon didn't take flight. Instead, it scanned its surroundings before locking eyes with Rhodes. "Your name is Rhodes?" it asked in the dialect of this world. Rough and guttural, like chewing gravel. "That's me," Rhodes answered. Despite the dragon's aggressive tone, he kept his voice steady. The infernal dragon snorted, clearly impatient. "What have you been stalling for?" "I've been waiting ages." It pointed at its own forehead. "Stop talking. Now punch me, right here. Don't hold back. Come on, hit me with everything you've got." Chapter 416, What Are You Looking At? Rhodes blinked, thinking he'd misheard the dragon. He stared blankly. Seeing him hesitate, the infernal dragon narrowed its vertical pupils. "What are you looking at?" "Looking at you." Rhodes almost said it, then quickly corrected himself. "Looking at how different you are from the mountain dragon." "Different? A dragon's a dragon, mouth, eyes, 4 legs. Stop wasting time." The infernal dragon huffed. "The mountain said you're not built for endurance, so while you still have some juice, come punch me. I want to see your level. No holding back. Give me everything you've got. Not durable? In front of my fiancé?" Rhodes immediately activated the mountain dragon's soul and, just to be sure, summoned the bramble back to grant himself a buff. "You said it. You asked for it." Rhodes had already figured it out. If the mountain dragon was calm and a bit proud, this infernal dragon was like a brash older brother who loved direct challenges. Since it came out full force, he'd respond in kind. With a burst of strength in his legs and his wings flaring behind him, Rhodes rocketed toward the infernal dragon's head like a blazing meteor. His right fist grew in size, swelling to the size of a cauldron lid, crackling with brute force as it hurtled forward with the power to level mountains. Hey! What are you calling that thing for?" The infernal dragon's eyes widened when it saw Brambleback. Too late to retreat, too proud to dodge or counter, it clenched its jaw and braced for impact. Boom! The punch slammed into the infernal dragon's forehead like a boulder crashing into molten lava. Flames erupted from the impact, scattering sparks that hardened midair before dropping like glowing iron shards, quickly cooling into fist-sized stones. The infernal dragon's massive head rocked backward from the force, and Rhodes, wings spread, flipped away and landed at a distance. He shook out his arm as charred stone peeled from his hand. But beneath it, his fist was completely unharmed. In a mock-serious tone, Rhodes echoed the dragon's earlier challenge. "Well? Was that fun?" "Amazing, brother. That punch was something else." The infernal dragon gave his head a shake, thoroughly impressed. That wasn't just fun, it was exhilarating. This guy was legit. He'd followed orders, hit hard, but still held back enough not to cause real injury. Bold, yet considerate. The infernal dragon liked that. "But brother," the dragon said with genuine feeling, "next time, don't use that tree thing when you're sparring with your own people. That hurt." "Got it. So, is there going to be a next time?" "Oh, definitely. When I'm feeling twitchy, I might come out just to scrap with you. Once you've gotten used to me, I'll introduce you to the others." With a casual flick of its claw, a blazing red orb shot out from the infernal dragon and sank into Rhodes' chest. Rhodes sensed the connection and realized it was the infernal dragon's soul. "All right, I'm heading back. But if there's ever a fight, call me. I don't know much, but I love brawling." Its body shimmered and began to fade, but the dragon's voice lingered. "Oh, and next time, just call me directly. That long chant of yours stresses me out." Once the infernal dragon vanished, Rhodes dismissed the Brambleback. Then, placing his hands against the scorched earth, he raised a ring of stone around the area to contain the flames and prevent them from spreading further. He estimated the height looked about right, then asked the blue sentinel to bring Myra over to him. Once she was safe at his side, he focused and carefully collapsed the surrounding rock wall inward, burying the flames and sealing off the lava. Phew! Rhodes let out a relieved breath as his body returned to its normal state. Myra hopped down and took his arm, eyeing him with concern. Are you tired? Rhodes shook his head. Nope. I've got excellent stamina. Myra didn't quite get why he had to be so stubborn about it. This dragon seemed easier to communicate with than the last. Maybe I've gotten stronger. Or maybe it's just his personality. The mountain dragon had let him touch its tail reluctantly before slipping the dragon soul to him without a word. The purgatory dragon, on the other hand, had demanded a punch to test his strength, then immediately declared him a brother and casually passed on the dragon soul. Getting a dragon soul by beating up a dragon, Rhodes mused that it did feel a lot like a video game mechanic, even if he didn't actually kill anything. I'll show you my new form later. He might have hidden it from others, but when it came to Myra, Rhodes couldn't wait to show off. Like a peacock spreading its tail. But Myra didn't need the flash. Let's head back and rest. It's getting late. I'm not tired. You're leaning on me if you're not tired. Tired or not, I still want to lean on you. Myra said nothing more, because she liked it too. She lifted Rhodes' arm and draped it around her neck, then wrapped an arm around his waist to help guide him up onto the sentinel's shoulder. The sentinel squatted and offered its hand as a platform, letting the two of them step onto its palm before gently raising them. Myra gave its solid, stony head a pat. Take us home. But the sentinel turned its glowing blue eyes toward Rhodes, silently waiting for his nod before moving. It'll cast blue buff on me automatically, but won't listen to anything else. Myra muttered, puzzled by its logic. She tried a different approach. Do you like to eat anything? The sentinel shook its head. It didn't eat. Of all Rhodes' summoned creatures, only Worm seemed to have an appetite. The rest could apparently live off thin air, which Myra found endlessly baffling. Once his magic had nearly recovered, Rhodes swapped out the sentinel with Scuttle River. The sentinel was simply too large and would draw too much attention rumbling through the city. The crab, on the other hand, had a wide, steady back, perfect for Myra to lie comfortably in his arms, and for him to rest his head in her lap. Of course, it was impossible for Rhodes to stay still for long. He fidgeted restlessly, and his hands kept wandering. Myra's face turned red. You're misbehaving again. No one can see us, and we're engaged. Rhodes murmured, letting his hand drift upward. He had held back earlier while they were out on business, but now that they were heading home, he couldn't suppress his impulses anymore. That still doesn't make it okay. We're outside. All right. Rhodes sat up with exaggerated innocence and gave the crab's antenna a quiet tug, guiding it back toward his house. Myra knew exactly what was going through his mind, and her thoughts became tangled. She wanted to protest, but also didn't want to. As they arrived outside Rhodes' home, she bit her lip and leaned in, whispering shyly in his ear. At most. Only like that day. Rhodes' breath caught. He could go slow. Step by step was just fine. Do you realize how dangerous you are right now? He teased. Huh? Before she could react, Rhodes scooped her into his arms and carried her up the stairs. There were a few flustered but sweet moments after that, not too far, but enough to make Myra gasp and blush before she tried to escape. This time, Rhodes gently pulled her into a firm embrace before she could flee. Myra buried her face in his chest, still crimson. I really should go back. Nope. But you already. I mean. Now it's my turn to take care of you. Rhodes said softly as he leaned in and kissed her, his arms tightening protectively around her. Myra murmured something in protest, but her voice faded into a quiet sigh. Chapter 417, Get Married After the S-Level Exam. Pervert. I'm a pervert. Bad guy. I'm a bad guy. Annoying. I'm annoying. Myra's list of complaints was running out. Flustered and out of words, she resorted to punching Rhodes in the chest and biting his shoulder. Strictly speaking, this was the kind of flustered outburst only someone close could get away with. Rhodes chuckled. This was his demon, Mara Jane. If she really wanted him gone, he'd be flying through the wall already. Since he was still in one piece, it meant she was letting herself be spoiled. You're still laughing. She huffed. All right. No more laughing. At least not out loud. Myra, flustered and tired, swatted his hand away as he started fidgeting again. Seriously, what now? Rhodes thought for a beat. Shower, then sleep? Myra sat up. A shower sounded good. Sleeping here, though? Definitely not. She couldn't trust him not to try something in the middle of the night. Even though. Well. Still no. She tugged at her clothes, trying to fix them. The top was passable, but the bottom half was a lost cause. Glaring at Rhodes, she sighed. His coat could cover the outside, but underneath? Actually, I do have something. Rhodes offered, pulling a small pouch from the back of his closet. Inside were two neatly folded sets of undergarments, clearly her size and her style. Myra's eyes widened. Rhodes wasn't the type to hand her someone else's clothes. That meant He bought these. Specifically. For her. You planned this all along. It's called being prepared. Rhodes defended. Don't you remember the time with the Phantom Guild? Your clothes got torn and you had nothing to change into. He handed the set to her with a sheepish look. And don't worry, I washed them after buying. He even washed them. He knew how to wash them. Myra pouted, unsure whether this was sweet or suspicious. Later, she'd have to interrogate him properly, what kind of classes he'd taken, whether he'd dated before, how many exes, all of it. She took one set and, after a moment's thought, shoved the other one back into Rhodes' arms. Then, without saying a word, she got out of bed barefoot and went to grab his slippers to wear. Rhodes held the second set of clothes like it was some kind of omen. Was this a hint? A signal? His gaze dropped to her pale feet. Dangerous ideas started swirling in his mind. No. Nope. Down, boy. He shoved the garments back into the closet and slapped his cheek slightly to refocus. What was wrong with him lately? Every time he was with Myra, his mind drifted into those thoughts. All sorts of wild fantasies kept popping up. Then again, wouldn't it be weirder if they didn't? He sighed. Maybe he needed to chat with the older guys at the guild sometime. Learn from their love stories, hear about their first experiences. You know, casually. Totally normal guild bonding. Maybe sell his Blue Pegasus show ticket to one of them on the side. Make a little profit. But for now, one task at a time. First, he had to change the sheets. Just then, a small hand stretched toward him. He nearly handed over the Blue Pegasus invitation out of habit. Huh? Clothes. Myra said with narrowed eyes. You had that stuff prepared. I doubt you don't have anything else. Rhodes thought for a second, then handed her a nightgown. She looked like she wanted to say something snarky, but before she could, Rhodes quickly cut in. Actually, I need a shower too. So maybe we could. Don't even think about it. Myra turned on her heel and darted into the bathroom, slamming the door shut and locking it behind her. This time, she finished her shower surprisingly fast, probably because she skipped washing her hair. The nightgown Rhodes had picked out was suspiciously perfect. It didn't reveal anything, yet somehow felt like it revealed everything. Myra wanted to say, I'm heading home. But after catching the faint scent of freshly changed sheets, her face flushed bright red. Silently, she walked over to the window and opened it wide, letting the breeze in. Why not stay the night? Rhodes wrapped his arms around her from behind, pressing a soft kiss against her earlobe. Elfman's probably asleep by now. Myra murmured. If I go back and unlock the door, I'll wake him up. If he's not asleep, it's even worse. My sister out with her fiancé all night, changing clothes when she gets back? Too suspicious. And wouldn't it be more awkward if she showed up tomorrow morning instead? Her ears turned a deeper shade of red, but she didn't pull away from his embrace or protest the kiss. Rhodes, sensing her hesitation, took the opportunity to list off 100 more reasons why staying made perfect sense, all while his hands subtly wandered. Whether it was to shut him up or because she was genuinely flustered, Myra slipped from his arms and gave him a gentle push. Go shower. If you don't, you're not allowed back in bed. I'm not even allowed in my own bed? Rhodes muttered with a grin, heading into the bathroom. The smug smile on his face betrayed how very okay he was with this arrangement. Honestly, it wasn't such a big deal. They'd shared beds before during long missions, all-nighters at the guild, even festival setups. This was just another night. Only now it was at his place. Myra repeated that logic to herself like a calming spell. Though the cuddling and gentle groping before sleep definitely weren't part of those other nights. No need to go into detail. The September heat still lingered, and dawn arrived earlier than usual. By 6 in the morning, soft sunlight was already spilling across the bedroom floor and climbing onto the bed through the open window. Rhodes lay on his back, posture relatively normal. Myra, on the other hand, had completely taken over the space. Her head was resting on his shoulder, one leg flung over his, both arms wrapped tightly around his chest. Her long white hair was draped across his torso and tangled in the sheets. It was clear, she'd used him as a pillow again. Rhodes stirred first. Feeling a weight on his chest, he initially thought it was warm. But when he blinked open his eyes, all he saw was a flood of silver hair and a very familiar scent. He remembered scooting over to the edge of his side before falling asleep, but judging by Myra's position now, she was clearly the one who'd taken over his half of the bed. Rhodes smiled to himself and pulled her into a comfortable hug. But Myra woke up too. Still half asleep, she rubbed her eyes and nuzzled the pillow instinctively. The moment she realized something was off with the texture, she jolted upright in horror. You crossed the line. How would I cross over in this sleeping position? Rhodes sat up groggily. Wait, I did cross over? He stared down at the wrinkled sheets in disbelief. Something didn't add up. He always slept lying flat, arms folded, no drama. So how had he ended up on her side? His eyes narrowed suspiciously. Did you grab me in your sleep again? Like when you think I'm a pillow? With most people, that might be a joke. With his Myra, it was a real possibility. I would never, Myra began, but her voice faltered as guilt crept in. The truth was she had done that before. It looks like you did something to me while I was asleep. I didn't. There was no point in arguing. Rhodes pulled Myra into his arms and grinned. Then I want to do something now. Myra lightly pushed his chest. Why are you so full of energy this early in the morning? If you don't have energy in the morning, that's when you should start worrying. Pervert. Myra was beginning to realize that this man was getting bolder with each passing day. She was a little worried he'd end up becoming a middle-aged lech like Macau or Wakaba. After a bit of fooling around, they both washed up and got ready for the day. Myra had wanted to make breakfast, but Rhodes' kitchen looked more like a showroom than a working space. Although it was clean and tidy, he hadn't actually used it since moving in. There were barely any utensils, not even the basics for boiling an egg. Rhodes did have a camping pot stored away for missions, but it would be ridiculous to use a camp stove indoors. With no other choice, they headed to the guild for breakfast. Morning, Brother Goodman. Morning. Goodman replied casually, not even turning around as he worked. But a second later, he spun back, doing a double take as if he'd just seen a ghost. Myra. Miss Myra Jane? Good morning, Mr. Goodman. Myra said with a soft smile, trying to hide her shyness. You too. He wasn't exactly shocked to see them together, he already knew they were dating, but this was the first time he'd seen them show up looking like a couple that had just spent the night together. Oh right, I haven't properly introduced you two. Rhodes said cheerfully, wrapping an arm around Myra's waist. This is my fiancée, Myra Jane. You're engaged? Goodman blinked, then quickly added. Congratulations. That's wonderful news. Thank you. Myra and Rhodes said in unison, exchanging bashful but happy glances. Goodman asked. So, when's the big day? Let me know early. I want to get you something nice. Rhodes replied. It's not set in stone yet, but if everything goes smoothly, we're aiming for late December, maybe around New Year's. They had discussed it briefly the night before. The next couple of weeks would be busy with the Harvest Festival preparations. After that, Rhodes planned to take on 1 or 2 high-paying jobs so they could pick out a house and begin furnishing it. They figured all of that could be wrapped up by early November, leaving them with enough time to plan the ceremony. Though Myra hadn't brought it up, Rhodes remembered that Lisanna's memorial was in mid-November. That wouldn't be the right time to celebrate anything. And with the S-Class promotion trial coming up in early December, a lot of their guildmates, Elfman, Natsu, Gray, would be busy with missions and evaluations. Even though Rhodes liked peace and quiet, he didn't want to miss the chance to have everyone present for their special day. So, setting the wedding date after the trial made the most sense. Plus, if Rhodes passed the S-Class exam, he'd finally shake off all the teasing about being a freeloader. 2 S-Class wizards getting married? Now that would be something to talk about. After settling on the general time frame, the two of them couldn't help but feel a bit giddy. Before bed, they'd even talked about what the wedding ceremony might be like. Rhodes wasn't too familiar with wedding customs in Magnolia, but Myra had seen a few in the past. Most were styled after Western traditions. Locals typically held ceremonies at cathedral in the city center. It would probably follow the usual steps, taking vows, exchanging rings, sharing a kiss to seal the promise, receiving the priest's blessing, and hearing a heartfelt speech from the father of the bride. After that, there would be a festive party and then the honeymoon. Of course, wizards tended to keep things simpler. Some didn't even bother with a honeymoon. They'd get married one day and be back to taking jobs the next. Rhodes, however, wasn't like most. He had a bit of an obsession with owning a home. While most newlyweds would just rent a place near the guild, he wanted something permanent. Myra understood that feeling all too well. She had once lived through the stress and uncertainty of not having a home to call her own. That was why she fully supported Rhodes' determination to buy a house before they married. Rhodes picked up on that and tried to honor all of Myra's wishes during the planning of the ceremony. When he saw the hopeful look in her eyes while she described the weddings she'd seen others have, he made up his mind. He was going to give her everything she dreamed of. He didn't want to do anything flashy or unusual. He just wanted to follow the customs of Magnolia and make the day feel as perfect as she imagined. If this was how things were done here, then that was good enough for him. Still, Myra had one lingering worry she hadn't voiced. In Magnolia, it was tradition for the woman to change her surname after marriage. For example, Biska's full name was Biska Milan, but after marrying Alzak Connell, she became Biska Connell. Myra wasn't sure how that tradition worked in Rhodes' case. Should she be called Myra Jane? Or Mara Jane Rhodes? The thought quietly sat in the back of her mind. The guild work continued as usual, but Elfman showed up a little later than normal. His sister hadn't come home last night. His future brother-in-law hadn't shown up for breakfast either. But when Elfman arrived at the guild, there they were, already working together like nothing was out of the ordinary. Even someone like Elfman, who didn't usually overthink things, knew exactly what that meant. Still, the wedding was coming soon, and it wasn't something he could really complain about. If he said too much now, it might stir up something awkward. Better to just find a job and vanish for a couple of days to let his brain settle. Now he was stuck wondering. Would his sister move in with Rhodes? Or would Rhodes move into their home? Should he start looking for a place of his own? Elfman stared at the mission board for a while before pulling down a request that caught his attention. He stood there beside Nab as if standing guard. After a while, Wakaba finally wandered over and picked out a job. Elfman followed quietly behind, trying his best not to stand out and draw Myra's attention. The harvest festival's coming up. Why take a mission so far out? Rhodes asked as he helped Wakaba log the request. That's exactly why. I want to earn some extra money before the festival so I can treat my wife right. Wakaba replied. He planned to take about 10 days, maybe 2 weeks, off once the festival started. But if he wanted a peaceful vacation, he needed to bring in enough money to keep his wife happy, and stash away a little for smokes and drinks. He glanced toward Myra, who was walking by with a serving tray, and leaned closer to Rhodes. You'll understand this kind of thing once you're married. Though maybe you won't have this problem. Rhodes gave a proud nod. Myra's thoughtful and fair. I'm lucky. No, that's not what I meant. Wakaba chuckled. What I mean is Myra's sharp. She'll know exactly how much you make. There'll be no hiding a private stash. He laughed outright now. There are plenty of folks jealous of you, but I made a bet with the others yesterday. After you get married, you'll be the poorest guy in the entire guild. Rhodes fell silent. What Wakaba said made sense. Marrying Myra was like marrying the guild's chief financial officer. She knew how to track every jewel, bonus, and monthly allowance down to the last coin. Since she handled Rhodes' pay, and all jobs had to go through the guild, there was no way to keep any earnings off the record. Even if a client decided to alter the reward after the mission, they'd contact the guild and submit the changes in writing. Unless someone acted like those shameless Phantom Lord thugs and extorted clients by force, there was just no chance of earning money under the table. It's fine. Myra's thoughtful and fair. Rhodes repeated, unsure if he was reassuring Wakaba or himself. Wakaba accepted the stamped mission slip and shook his head with a knowing smile. Women change after marriage. He turned and found himself face to face with Myra's pleasant smile. She had only caught Wakaba's last sentence, but she could guess the rest. Was he trying to talk Rhodes out of proposing? Now she had to decide. Where should she bury him? Wakaba's pipe nearly fell from his mouth. He swallowed nervously and corrected himself on the spot. What I meant is, women usually become more considerate after marriage. Chapter 418, Fire Dragon King? Ask him to fight me. Wiping the cold sweat from his forehead, Wakaba slipped out of the guild without another word. This was definitely not a good place to linger any longer. Myra's gaze naturally shifted to Elfman. Are you heading out too? Elfman gave a firm nod. Yeah. Just saw a mission that's perfect for a man. Is that so? Myra thought for a moment, then tossed the task list to Rhodes and grabbed Elfman by the arm. Come with me. I need to talk to you. Rhodes quietly glanced over the mission Elfman had picked, then turned to prepare the necessary items for the job. A little while later, Elfman returned with Myra, took what Rhodes had prepared, and headed out. Rhodes asked casually. So, what was it all about? I told him our plan. Myra replied. And I told him not to be so obsessed with saving money. Then why did he still accept the mission? Because. Myra suddenly deepened her voice and struck a pose, imitating Elfman. Men have reasons to work hard. They both burst out laughing. That counted as getting the family's blessing, at least. And besides. Myra sat behind the counter with her chin resting on her hand, looking toward Rhodes inside the guild. When Elfman gets back in a few days, let's visit the cemetery together. Rhodes glanced back and nodded. All right. Something that important deserved to be shared with Lisanna too. I'm back. The guild doors burst open with a loud bang. Rhodes didn't even have to look, he already knew who it was. Natsu. He called out with a sigh. Is it really that hard to open a door normally? Do you have to kick it every single time? Happy fluttered in behind him, cheerfully correcting him. This time he kicked it twice. Huh? Rhodes raised an eyebrow. Lucy followed, exasperated. He kicked the outer iron door too. Rhodes glanced at Natsu's feet, noting the worn slippers. Clearly, the guy didn't care if it hurt. Welcome back. Myra said warmly, walking over. Ursa, did the mission go smoothly? It went well. Ursa replied as she rolled in a luggage cart. Aside from waiting on 2 stragglers, everyone else was dealt with quickly. She stepped inside and laid a few official documents on the counter. Lucy looked completely drained. She slumped onto a stool, stretched across the counter, and squashed the round bag she'd been carrying. Thank goodness those dark guilds love hiding deep in the woods. She muttered. If we'd wrecked a normal building again, we'd be stuck paying damages. Natsu tilted his head. Huh? Why? Lucy gave him a tired glare. Do you seriously not get it? You caused the most damage out of all of us. Happy chimed in cheerfully. That's because if Natsu had self-awareness, he wouldn't be Natsu. Rhodes chuckled as he gathered the task slip and the prison receipt confirming the Dark Guild's detainment. He noted the completion time and began recording the rest of the mission data. Myra, go ahead and process their reward. Got it. Myra picked up a stack of crisp bills and set them in front of Ursa. Here's your payment. This mission had been issued by the Regional Guild Alliance. Since some of the smaller guilds didn't have combat-ready members, they pooled funds together to request help from stronger guilds like Fairy Tail. The payment was handled directly by the guild, so no client meeting was necessary. Big names like Blue Pegasus and the Quattro Cerberus often handled jobs the same way. It's the full amount. Lucy suddenly perked up, her fatigue momentarily forgotten. Full rewards were a rare blessing for her. But just as she reached out to grab a bundle of fresh bills, Mirza gently pushed them back. I'm returning these, she said calmly. Should be enough to cover the damage to the hotel last time, right? Myra thought for a moment, then said. Almost. The rest is technically Gray's share. Gray had been teaming up with Julia lately, so he wasn't part of this mission and didn't receive any of the payment. Mirza smiled lightly. That's fine. Then I'll give all of this to you. It was an unspoken rule in the guild, when members went out on missions together, the rewards were split evenly, regardless of individual contribution. Likewise, any damages were shared equally. Take Natsu and Happy, for example. When they earned money, they each got a share. But when there were damages to pay for, Happy still had to cough up his portion. That's why only the closest friends typically stuck together as fixed teams. Mirza handed the reward money over to Myra and Rhodes without objection from anyone. Only Lucy looked completely heartbroken. For once, they'd gotten a full reward, and now it had to go toward repairs. And this time, the destruction hadn't even happened during the mission. Myra. Lucy groaned. Don't worry. Just give it your best next time. Mirza said, always full of encouragement. Lucy wasn't so sure things would go that smoothly next time. Natsu, ever carefree, grinned. Forget that for now. Let's eat a flame meal, I haven't had one in forever. I want Mr. Cook's steamed fish. Even though they didn't get to keep the reward, they'd completed the mission successfully. That was worth a little celebration. Myra handed the whole stack of bills to Rhodes. Let's save this up together when we have time. Alright. Rhodes tucked the money away without fuss. Wakaba's earlier warning about being the poorest man in the guild was clearly exaggerated. Myra wasn't the type to take over their finances unilaterally. Myra, I want a strawberry cake, Mirza said, then turned to Lucy. Come on, don't be so down. Eat something and check out the new jobs later. Lucy sighed. That's all I can do. Miss Myra, I'll have a grilled steak. Okay, one moment. Myra said, cheerfully jotting down their orders. Any drinks? Iced coffee, said Lucy. Black tea, Mirza added. A short while later, Lockie brought over the drinks. But instead of rushing off, she lingered beside Lucy. Hey Lucy, don't you have a celestial spirit that's a barber? It's Cancer, Lucy corrected with a small smile. He really likes cutting hair. Great. Lockie lifted a strand of her long purple hair. I've been thinking about changing my look. Maybe I'll ask Cancer to help cut it shorter. Cut? Lucy blinked, surprised by Lockie's wording, but nodded. Sure, why not? Thanks. Drinks are on me today. Lockie grinned, excited at the idea of a celestial spirit giving her a new haircut. Lockie, can you ring this up? Myra called out. On it. Lockie replied. Lucy noticed how busy Lockie was and smiled. Catch me on your break, okay? Deal. Why the sudden haircut? Rhodes asked, clearly confused. He glanced over at Myra's long hair and muttered. Long hair looks nice. Probably because it's getting hot out. Lucy shrugged. This stuff on my neck feels like a blanket. Ah, that makes sense. In that case, I'll help Myra tie hers up. Rhodes picked up Lucy and Ursa's meal orders from the kitchen counter and placed them on the serving tray, then stepped out to where Myra stood. Lucy rested her cheek on her hand, watching them. They're so lovey-dovey, she teased. Not that Rhodes minded. He just grinned and continued working, entirely unbothered by her teasing. Suddenly, a voice rang out across the guild. It was female, a bit shy but determined. "Please go out with me." Everyone froze. Rosa's hand stopped mid-motion, and her fork clattered loudly onto her plate. Turning around, she saw Biska, long green hair flowing behind her, holding a bouquet of flowers, as she confessed to Alzik in front of the whole guild. Myra gasped softly and whispered. "So bold. You're one to talk." Rhodes chuckled, leaning in to whisper in her ear while tying her hair up into a neat ponytail. He looked at his handiwork and nodded in approval. His skill was improving, maybe next time he'd try twin tails. Around the room, all work had come to a halt as people turned to watch. Biska's cheeks were crimson. She instantly regretted confessing in front of a crowd. Why hadn't she just pulled Alzik aside in private? But seeing Rhodes and Myra being so open about their feelings reminded her of how decisive Myra had been with her own confession. It gave her the push she needed. Now, her heart was racing and she couldn't meet anyone's eyes. Not even Alzik's. Why had she done this in the middle of the day, when the guild was packed? She wanted to smack herself. But it was too late now. The words were out. All she could do was wait nervously for his response. Alzik wasn't handling it much better. He had tried many times to gather the courage to confess first, but always backed down. In his daydreams, he imagined Biska taking the initiative, yet now that it had actually happened, he was completely stunned. He stood frozen, red-faced, fumbling for words. After several false starts, he finally blurted out. I do." The confession sounded more like a marriage proposal than a date. Laughter and cheers erupted throughout the guild. Some whistled, others clapped. The two had been dancing around each other for as long as Rhodes and Myra had, but unlike them, Biska and Alzik were painfully shy. They always took jobs together, but wouldn't even sit next to each other at meals. It had driven everyone else crazy with second-hand frustration. Alzik really had no game. He actually waited for the girl to make the first move. Still, Myra had done it. Now Biska had too. The women in Fairy Tale were something else. So, who would be next? Someone in the crowd gave them a little push from behind, and the two shy lovebirds stumbled into a hug. The guild erupted into cheers. Alzik and Biska smiled bashfully, both of them so red in the face they looked like they might boil over. Rosa didn't even touch her strawberry cake. She had been getting hit with a lot of romantic energy lately, and it was starting to take its toll. Even though she had encouraged Biska to confess, when it actually happened, she was more flustered than Biska herself. Ursa. Lucy waved a hand in front of her face. By the time Alzik and Biska left on their date, the rest of the guild had gone back to their usual business. Lucy had already finished her steak and was sipping the last of her tea, but Rosa still sat frozen in place. Lucy called her name again. "We should probably." Rosa finally blinked herself out of standby mode. Thanks for everything today. I'll head out first." She stood up and walked out stiffly, her movements jerky, her arms swinging too wide like a malfunctioning robot. "Pick a new mission." Lucy mumbled, her sentence trailing off as Rosa walked away, clearly not listening at all. Lucy frowned. "Is she okay?" "She'll be fine. She acted the same way when Myra confessed to me." Rhodes said casually. "Huh? Miss Myra confessed to you?" Lucy's eyes lit up with curiosity. Rhodes nodded solemnly. "What can I say? My charm was too overwhelming." While Myra was out of earshot, he figured it was safe to brag a little. That night, Rhodes dragged Natsu out of the city on a secret trip. Myra didn't come along. She had asked Lucy to spend the evening with her at the girls' dorm. Apparently, Juvia was officially moving in and wanted to bond with the other girls, so they were throwing a little welcome party for her. Between that and Biska's romantic success, they turned it into a full-blown pajama party. Levi, Loki, Mickey, and Chico were all going. Myra mentioned they'd probably have so much fun they'd end up crashing there overnight. When Rhodes asked if he should send Scuttle Crab to pick them up later, Myra gave him a very sweet, very gentle smile. That was her polite way of saying, "Don't even think about it. Why are we being all sneaky about this?" Natsu grumbled. "What's wrong with people knowing about dragons? If I ever find Neil, I'm introducing him to everyone. I just don't want to cause a panic in town." Rhodes replied. "Especially not with this new guy I met. He loves to fight. If he goes wild, we won't even have a town left to worry about, just a massive repair bill I can't afford." "He likes to fight? That's perfect." Natsu grinned, bumping his fists together with excitement. "Sounds like my kind of guy." "We're not doing this in the city." Rhodes replied flatly. "Yeah, I think Rhodes has a point." Happy chimed in. Natsu couldn't help noticing that whenever he went somewhere with Rhodes, he always seemed to be outvoted. They were nearly at their destination when Rhodes raised a hand and said simply, "Summon, Infernal Dragon." The air suddenly turned hot and dry. Flames shimmered around the summoning circle, and even before the massive form appeared, a voice boomed from within, "I'm here. What's the job this time?" "All right, brother, who are we burning today?" The molten-scaled infernal dragon emerged from the flames, smoke trailing from his body like living magma. He looked around and snorted. "Wait a second. Isn't this the same place as last time?" "Huh?" His eyes locked onto Natsu. "Where'd this little dragon runt come from?" He leaned down and sniffed the air, his nostrils glowing. "No way, it's a little fire dragon cub. Definitely one of ours. Whose kid is this?" Natsu's eyes lit up with hope. This dragon looked and felt like family. "I'm Natsu. Son of Gneil. Do you know Gneil?" Even though Rhodes had warned him not to expect a connection, since the Earth Dragon hadn't recognized Gneil, he had to try. Maybe this one, being a fire dragon too, would know something. "Gneil?" The infernal dragon repeated, puzzled. "Nah, never heard of him." "Who's that?" "He's the Fire Dragon King." "Gneil, the Fire Dragon King?" The infernal dragon burst into laughter. "Fire Dragon King? Seriously? Who the hell's going around calling themselves that? Sounds like someone who needs a wake-up call. Tell him to show up, I'll gladly knock that title off him." Chapter 419, It's Better to Be in the Guild. The infernal dragon wasn't pleased about being called arrogant, and Natsu didn't appreciate anyone disrespecting Gneil. With both of them hot-headed and proud, there was really only one way this could end, by throwing fists. So Natsu charged straight in. And then Natsu got flattened. The infernal dragon's blows were even heavier than those of the mountain dragon. Its tail, thicker than a tree trunk, swept through the air with terrifying speed, striking Natsu without hesitation. Its massive claws, easily large enough to crush a man, slammed into him with ease and precision. Normal flames couldn't hurt Natsu, but the infernal dragon didn't need fire to pummel him into the dirt. "Hey! He's one of us!" Rhodes shouted, trying to calm things down. "Go easy on him." But the infernal dragon didn't care. He struck when he felt like it. The fire dragon cub was sturdy, and this little brother of his clearly needed to toughen up. Originally, Rhodes had planned to spar with Natsu himself using the infernal dragon's power. Instead, he ended up acting as the cleanup crew, carrying Natsu back like luggage. If he hadn't done it, the scuttle crab probably would have. "Sorry. He might have gone a little overboard," Rhodes muttered, looking down at Natsu, whose body was now covered in bruises and fresh lumps. Happy, ever the optimist, fluttered alongside them and said, "It's fine. Natsu ends up like this pretty often when he's training." His idea of training involved tying Natsu to a tree and letting boulders tumble down a hill toward him. Which Rhodes had seen once. And in terms of brutal training methods, Natsu definitely had a screw loose. "That damn dragon. I swear I'll pay him back." "Ow!" Natsu groaned, trying to sit up. But one of his bruises smacked into the crab's shell, and he winced in pain. "Stop moving. Just lie still," Rhodes said, gently pushing him back down. "We'll be home soon." Natsu and Happy's house was built just outside Magnolia, tucked at the base of a small hill. The surrounding area was lush. Maybe a little too lush. Branches actually stuck out of the outer walls like they were part of the structure. Clearly, home maintenance wasn't high on their list of priorities. Inside was even more chaotic. Dumbbells of every size cluttered the floor. Clothes, towels, and random jars were scattered around like someone had tried to summon a tornado and halfway succeeded. There was barely any room to walk. Happy led the way, weaving through the disaster zone. Rhodes followed carefully, navigating the terrain while still carrying Natsu. But the obstacles Rhodes tried to avoid with such care? Natsu kicked or stepped on them without a second thought, even while half-conscious. "Just lay him there," Happy said, pointing with his paw. Rhodes raised a brow. "The hammock? You sure?" Yeah. Just toss him on. He'll be fine." Well, Natsu was tough. "All right." Rhodes shrugged and gently dropped Natsu into the hammock. Surprisingly, Natsu didn't groan or complain. He was snoring within seconds. Looked like he'd be back to his energetic self after a good nap. By the time Rhodes stepped back outside, the night was deep and quiet. The streets of Magnolia were calm. The street lamps glowed warmly, casting halos of light where swarms of tiny insects danced in circles. Some bumped against the glass, thudding lightly. By morning, their little bodies would be scattered at the base of the lamps, more work for the city's cleaning crew. Rhodes didn't summon Worm, and Myra wasn't with him either. For once, he just strolled through the silent streets alone. They were probably having a good time right now. Rhodes wandered alone under the quiet night sky, the laughter of the girls' pajama party echoing faintly in his imagination. I wonder what they're doing right now. Pillow fights? Ghost stories? Braiding each other's hair? Overhead, A few bats swooped through the air, snatching up tiny insects fluttering beneath the glow of street lamps. Rhodes, bored and restless, slipped off one of his shoes and casually tossed it into the air. A bat darted after the flying shoe, following its arc with uncanny precision. Just as the shoe began to fall, the bat veered away in a sharp curve, nimbly avoiding it. He chuckled to himself. Back when I was a kid, someone said if you threw a shoe high enough, you might actually hit a bat. We used to try it all the time. Never saw anyone pull it off, though. Grinning like a child, he walked over, picked up his shoe, and tossed it again. Then again. Each time, he retrieved it, laughing softly under his breath. Simple joys. No one would have guessed that fairy tale strategist, the ever-calm Rhodes, played games like this when no one was watching. The next morning, sunlight crept over the rooftops of Magnolia. Rhodes stepped out onto the balcony to gather the laundry. There were his clothes, Myra's, and a big bed sheet flapping in the breeze. He didn't know if Myra had come home last night, so she might not be joining him for breakfast today. No big deal. He'd just fold up her clothes and drop them off later. Come to think of it, he still had a change of clothes at Myra's place that he never picked up. A fair trade. He smiled at the thought. After finishing his morning workout, he started heading to the guild alone. On the way, a random thought struck him. I'll go to Myra's house tonight to pick up my clothes. Then tomorrow night, I'll go drop off hers. And the day after that. Elfman should be back soon. I'll need a new excuse to stop by then. Maybe I'll tell her Worm can do a backflip now. That sounds convincing enough. She'll definitely come see that. He was still planning excuses in his head when he arrived at the guild's front gate. Leaning against a wall just outside the entrance was Kenna. Her hair was a mess, her clothes looked like she'd slept in them, and she was holding an almost empty bottle of booze above her mouth, trying to coax out the last few drops. Only a thin trickle came out, which she quickly licked off her lips. Finally someone is here. Kenna muttered, spotting him. I thought the Magic Council had banned the whole guild or something. When do you get back? Rhodes asked, pulling out the key to open the gate and unlock the front hall door. Last night. She replied, yawning. I passed out in front of my place. Woke up this morning and realized half my wine spilled, so I figured I'd raid the guild stash. Did she seriously pass out on her own doorstep before even opening the door? And then roll straight into the guild the next morning without even freshening up, just to get more booze? Rhodes rubbed his temple. Falling asleep outside your own house. You're really something else. Kenna just shrugged, clearly unfazed. Where's Loke? Rhodes asked. That flaky guy? He popped back to the celestial spirit realm the moment our mission wrapped. Said he'll come back and hang out after taking a break. Did you stir up any trouble this time? Rhodes raised an eyebrow. Like sticking your wine tab on the council again or forgetting to pee? Kenna scoffed. You make it sound like I cause trouble every time. I'm not Natsu, okay? Besides, the council's still sorting itself out after that last mess. The tavern wouldn't even accept their name on credit. Rhodes blinked. Wait. You actually tried to charge it to the council? He was just teasing her about her past stunts, he hadn't expected her to actually go for it. Don't bring it up. Kenna waved it off like it was no big deal. Anyway, the debt's not my problem. No one chased me down, so I call that a win. She followed Rhodes to the front counter, plopped herself on the nearest stool without checking if it was even clean, and slammed her hand on the tabletop. Come on, bring the wine already. I've been waiting forever. Take it out of my mission reward. Her last job had been alongside Urza, taking down a dark guild. The reward money was still being processed by Fairy Tale, so technically, she was still broke. Rhodes sighed. Hold on. I'll go check the kitchen. There's a whole rack of bottles over there. Kenna said, pointing lazily. If you don't hurry, I'm grabbing one myself. Those aren't for mornings. Rhodes called back. Sit tight. TCH. Like time of day matters when drinking. She muttered. Still, she stayed put. A moment later, Rhodes returned with a small clay wine jar tucked under his arm and a plate of snacks balanced in his other hand. He set down a dish of crispy Poro treats and held the wine jar protectively. Eat something first. No drinking on an empty stomach. Are all guys with girlfriends this thoughtful? Kenna muttered to herself, grabbing a round biscuit-like treat and crunching into it. Already ate. Gimme the wine. She said with a full mouth. Rhodes poured a modest amount into a small cup. This is Mr. Cook's rice wine. Warms your stomach and helps shake off fatigue. Kenna gave the drink a curious sniff. It smelled sweet and smooth. A bit light for her usual taste, but after taking a sip, she couldn't deny how good it was. She ate a few more Poro snacks, sipped another cup of rice wine, and let out a deep sigh. Sure, I can drink wherever I want out there. No rules, no nags. But somehow, drinking here at the guild just felt better. Chapter 420, Repeat Offender. Why are you working alone today? You're usually with Myra. Kana asked curiously, watching Rhodes dart around the guild hall with sleeves rolled up. Did you two have a fight or something? Rhodes blinked. A fight? No way. We just got engaged 2 days ago. Huh? PFFT. Cough. Cough. Kana nearly spat out her rice wine and ended up choking on it instead. Careful. Rhodes said, handing her a napkin. Kana pounded her chest as she coughed, her chest bouncing with the motion. When did that happen? Right after you left town. There were even reporters around that day. You might see my proposal photo in a magazine soon. Now that he said it out loud, Rhodes realized the timing had been perfect. What would have just been big news around Magnolia would now spread across all of Fiore, and probably the entire continent of Ishkar, thanks to the media attention. He'd even get a magazine copy as a keepsake. Maybe show it to his kids and grandkids one day. Rhodes chuckled at the thought. It surprised even him that his mind had jumped to future family memories so fast. Damn it. Kana muttered, tossing back the rest of her drink. Something that big, and I missed it? Rhodes added casually. Oh, and I bet you didn't hear about Biska confessing to Elsic either. What? Yeah. And last night, Myra and the rest of the girls had a pajama party at the dorms, so they'll probably be a bit late coming in today. Kana coughed again. She'd only been gone for 2 or 3 days, but it felt like she'd missed an entire year's worth of drama. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, Mr. Cook arrived to prep breakfast in the kitchen. Rhodes greeted him, mentioned the rice wine he'd taken earlier, and ordered 2 breakfasts, one for himself and one to pack into a warm lunchbox. Cook waved him off, saying it was fine as long as someone paid eventually. Soon, more guild members began trickling in for breakfast, and Rhodes was pulled in every direction, whirling around like a wind-up top. Even Kana wasn't spared. He roped her in to help, despite her grumbling. Worm and a few of the small raptors were drafted as mobile serving carts, their tiny bodies balancing trays with surprising coordination. The sight of animals handling deliveries made breakfast lively, but it also raised eyebrows. Where did all the waitresses go? Someone asked. Rhodes was wondering the same thing. He briefly considered sneaking into the girls' dorms with the excuse. I was worried about my fiancé's safety. But after a moment's thought, he came up with a better plan. Hey Kana, why don't you go check on them for me? You should have asked way earlier. She snapped, slamming her tray on the counter. She clearly wasn't a fan of the waitress gig and made a beeline for the door. But just then, 7 waitresses, including Myra and Lucy, burst through the guild entrance in a flurry. Sorry we're late. Our bad. They ran over, bowing and apologizing to everyone before crowding around the counter and facing Rhodes with guilty looks. All of you are late. Wages are getting docked. Rhodes said sternly, slipping into his manager mode. Lockie grinned playfully. Even Myra's getting her pay docked? All of you. Rhodes said with a smirk, glancing at Myra. But since I covered for everyone this morning, that cut in pay will be credited to me. No loss for our household, he thought. Myra giggled sweetly. Lockie pouted and shot Rhodes a playful glare. Rhodes pointed at the overworked raptors running back and forth with trays, and at Worm sneaking bites behind the counter. All right, enough slacking. Back to work, or I'll replace you all with my summons permanently. The guild bustled back to life. Everyone dispersed to their stations. Kana flopped lazily into a chair and resumed drinking without a care. Meanwhile, Lucy turned to leave with the others, only to double back and sit down again at the counter, visibly confused. Kana glanced over and raised an eyebrow. Lucy, what are you doing? Lucy covered her face in embarrassment. I followed everyone here without thinking. I thought I was late for work too. PFFT. Ha ha ha. Kana laughed out loud. You dummy. Rhodes finally had a moment to breathe. Why are you even here so late anyway? I overdid it yesterday. Should have just gone home to catch up on sleep. Lucy muttered, slumping against the counter. She looked vaguely haunted. I just hope my place didn't get broken into again. Just then, Myra returned with a stack of dishes in hand. 2 beers for table 6, 3 for table 7. She said, not missing a beat. Can you handle that, Rhodes? So many people drinking already? Rhodes grabbed a handful of glasses and started pouring, then paused. Hold up. What is it? Myra turned back. You eat first. He pulled out a warm lunchbox he'd kept aside. Myra smiled sweetly but waved him off. I'll eat after I finish this round. Nope. Rhodes said, gently pushing her into a seat. I said I've got it. If you don't sit down and eat now, I'll start feeding you in front of everyone, bite by bite. Myra giggled. That's so embarrassing. But she still obediently opened the lunchbox and started eating. With a sigh, Rhodes picked up the tray and went back to waiter duty again, even though he'd been trying to avoid it just a moment ago. Later that morning, when things finally calmed down, Rhodes leaned over to Myra, his curiosity getting the better of him. "So, what exactly happened at your little pajama party last night?" Myra smiled mysteriously, thinking for a moment. "Oh, you know. Cards, drinks, gossip. And a few interesting games." She winked. Lucy, who had been eavesdropping nearby, instantly turned red. "Ah. Don't bring that up. Didn't we all agree, if everyone wants it, everyone does it? So why was I the only one?" she cried, burying her face in her arms. Myra chuckled, covering her mouth as if trying to hide it. "Yes, why was that?" From the look on Myra's face, Rhodes could tell exactly what had happened. Either Myra had convinced Lucy there were special rules at the party just to prank her, or she'd gotten the whole group to play along and teasing her. Either way, his black-hearted little fiancé was clearly one of the masterminds. Still, since it had only been girls at the pajama party, Lucy didn't exactly suffer. At the very least, it wasn't nearly as embarrassing as that incident at the theater. No. What theater? Rhodes definitely hadn't seen anything in the theater. Clearing his throat, Rhodes asked innocently. "I'm actually more curious about the kind of things you all talked about. And those interesting games." That got Lucy excited. The best part was definitely the truth or dare session. "Miss Myra." "No. Don't listen to her." Myra panicked, instantly clamping her hands over Rhodes' ears and even pulling his head into her chest in a flurry of flustered motion. Rhodes blinked, unimpressed. His heart was steady. He didn't really care much about silly party gossip, but Myra's dramatic overreaction made him very curious. Wait. No. He shouldn't let himself get distracted by her softness. He needed to know what question had flustered her this much. Taking a deep breath, Rhodes summoned his willpower, gently pried Myra's hands away, and looked her in the eyes. "What did you say?" Lucy's eyes sparkled. "We asked Ms. Myra if MMF." Before she could finish, Myra zipped behind her like a shadow and slapped both hands over her mouth. They were just girl talk. Totally normal. Nothing you need to worry about, Myra said hurriedly, her face a mix of laughter and panic. She then started dragging poor Lucy out of the guild, muffled protests trailing behind her. MMPHH. MMPHH. Rhodes crossed his arms and watched them go. The more Rhodes looked at her, the more he felt that Myra was a repeat offender. Chapter 421, Fairy Tale Special. Rhodes wasn't the gossiping type. Since Myra had kidnapped Lucy to keep her from spilling secrets, he didn't press further. Instead, he simply waited until Myra returned, so he could ask the other girls in front of her. Then, when Myra inevitably panicked and tried to stop him, he'd casually propose a harmless little deal in exchange. As for what Myra might have said at the party, that was no longer the point. What mattered was what came next. Over the following week, Lucy found herself alone again. Natsu had gone into special training mode after getting thoroughly beaten by the infernal dragon. Gray, meanwhile, was sticking close to Juvia, at least until the upcoming Harvest Festival. Riza had taken a hit emotionally upon hearing that Jel had been arrested. Though she didn't say anything, the news clearly weighed on her. Her method of coping? Designing a brand new armor set. Since the pajama party, she hadn't even returned to the guild. That left Lucy spending her days pacing aimlessly around the request board, eyes filled with dread and indecision. In fact, she was starting to look like Naboo 2.0. It wasn't entirely her fault. With the Harvest Festival coming up, everyone had been snatching up jobs so they could enjoy a few days off. Most of the high-reward, low-risk requests were long gone, and any new ones posted were picked clean by noon. Lucy's hesitation didn't help. Twice now, she'd spotted missions that seemed doable, only to lose them to someone else while she stood there weighing her options. She couldn't even complain, because technically she hadn't made a decision either time. What am I gonna do about my rent? She groaned, slumping onto the counter with a loud thud. If there'd been a bed nearby, she probably would have rolled onto it and flailed dramatically. Behind the counter, Myra had just dropped off a handful of used glasses in the sink and was rinsing them clean. She poured Lucy something to drink, placed it in front of her, and asked gently. "Still haven't found a job you like?" "I mean, yeah, a few. But I can't take them on alone," Lucy admitted with a sigh. "I really want to do one of those missions where you defeat some bad guys and help people. The noble kind of jobs. But I just don't have the confidence to do it solo. If only I could summon all my celestial spirits at once, like Mr. Rhodes." Myra chuckled. "Can celestial spirit mages summon more than one spirit at a time?" Lucy gave her a weary look. "It's not that simple. Even summoning 2 gates at once is rare." "Really?" Myra blinked. "But last time, Rhodes and I met a celestial spirit mage who summoned two spirits at the same time. Lucy bolted upright. Wait. What? Seriously? Who was it? She was wearing a cloak, so we didn't get a good look at her face. Myra explained. But she was a girl, and she summoned Gemini and Scorpio. Lucy gasped. Two zodiac keys? That's amazing. Myra tilted her head. But don't you have more zodiac keys than that? That's true. Lucy smiled a little sheepishly, then admitted with a greedy gleam in her eyes. Actually, if possible, I want to collect all 12 zodiac keys. So greedy, Myra giggled and then offered. But if you really want to gather all 12, why not ask Cloak and the others where the rest are? Maybe they know who that cloaked celestial mage was too. Lucy waved her hands quickly. No way. The celestial spirit world follows their own version of the Personal Information Protection Act. Loke would never leak someone's location. Just then, the guild doors slammed open. The magazine's out. A voice shouted. This issue's a fairy tale special. Everyone who got interviewed is in it. Max came charging into the guild, waving a glossy magazine high over his head like a street vendor. The room burst into chaos. Where is it? Let me see. Whoa, our guild's on the cover. I was kinda hoping Myra would be on the cover, to be honest. What are you talking about? Even if she is, she's probably with Rhodes. Just crop him out. Cut the chatter, find my page first. No, mine. Everyone swarmed around Max like kids fighting over candy. Those lucky enough to squeeze in huddled close to catch a glimpse. The rest circled and waited impatiently for a turn. A few gave up altogether and ran out to buy their own copy. After all, it was a special edition, a commemorative print of fairy tale's wildest personalities. Worth keeping, if only to say, hey, I was there. I kinda want to see if I got mentioned too. Lucy muttered, watching the ever-growing mob with an overwhelmed expression. She decided not to dive into the fray. Myra, aren't you curious at all? I'm all right. Myra said with a gentle smile. Oh, right. You're basically a celebrity at Sorcerer Weekly. You're probably used to this by now. Still. Myra said softly, eyes twinkling. I am a little curious about this one. She wanted to know if the picture of her and Rhodes from that day had made it in. It's fine, even if we can't see it now. Rhodes went out to grab something, he'll definitely bring a copy back. Yeah, that's true. But Myra had underestimated him. When Rhodes returned, he was holding 3 copies of the magazine. This one's for the keepsake collection. He said casually as one copy vanished from his hands the moment he walked in. Here, lend this one to the others. Rhodes said, handing the second magazine to Lucy. Then this one's for us. He flipped to the most important page and gently pulled Myra close so they could read it together. After all, it was only 300 jewels a copy, about the price of a glass of wine. Getting a couple of extras didn't hurt. This photo actually made it in. Myra's eyes lit up as she looked at the page. Having such a beautiful moment recorded in a magazine felt incredibly romantic. The picture showed the exact moment Rhodes lifted Myra up after she said yes to his proposal. Rhodes' arm was around her waist, head tilted up slightly as he gazed into her eyes. Myra was off the ground, feet tipped back, her upper body leaning slightly as her hands rested on his shoulders. She was looking down at him with a soft blush and a glowing smile. Rhodes' face mirrored that joy, his expression was full of happiness and deep affection. Jason really was a top-tier photographer. His ability to capture these perfect moments was no joke. Though Rhodes wasn't about to give him all the credit. He leaned in close to Myra's ear and whispered. Don't you think my fiancé is stunning? Myra pointed at the photo and teased. Look at my fiancé. Doesn't he look a little goofy in this picture? Goofy? That's a handsome smile, thank you very much. It's still goofy. Say that again? Rhodes slid his hand toward her waist with a devilish grin, threatening to tickle. Myra didn't budge. He's goofy. But in her heart, she was thinking, I love him. I really do. Chapter 422, Gagiel deserves a punch. The entire magazine, aside from a few standard ad pages, was dedicated entirely to fairy tale. The first half featured interviews with some of the more well-known members such as Ursa, Natsu, Elfman, Gray, and others. Up until the section about Rhodes proposing to Myra, the content mostly contained introductions and positive highlights about the guild. Then came the fun part, a section filled with so-called interesting news about the more chaotic side of fairy tale. Naturally, most of that came from Natsu. Jason, the ever-enthusiastic reporter, always wrote about the things Natsu smashed, wrecked, or exploded. To the average person, these looked like negative headlines full of destruction and trouble. But Jason saw things differently. He believed it was cool. He even described the punch Natsu once gave him as the hottest greeting in history. In his eyes, this kind of wildness was what made fairy tales special. He wrote everything with passionate flair, hoping readers would fall in love with the guild the way he had. People who were already familiar with Jason or Fairy Tale probably understood what he meant. But to newcomers, it likely sounded more like sarcasm. As everyone flipped through the pages, they eagerly searched for mentions of themselves. When someone found a flattering line, they proudly showed it off to their friends. And when they found someone else's embarrassing moment, they read it out loud to get a good laugh. Of course, things got a little rowdy during the more exciting reveals. Makarov didn't bother stepping in. Sitting upstairs with a copy of the magazine, he sighed. He could tell the reporter truly admired the guild, but still. Let them enjoy themselves. He muttered with a soft smile. The guild hall stayed noisy all morning and well into lunch. But by the afternoon, things quieted down. That was when Gagiel returned from his long mission. Although he was officially a member now, his presence still made others uncomfortable. Most of the guild still didn't know how to interact with him. Aside from Makarov and Julia, few people welcomed him warmly. Gagiel clicked his tongue and walked straight to the counter, pulling out a completed task form. Rhodes followed protocol, registering the completed mission and handing over the reward. Gagiel had taken on a mission involving a dark guild, just like Kenna. The difficulty and distance were about the same. But unlike Kenna, who had wrapped it up quickly, Gagiel took 4 or 5 days longer. Rhodes looked at him and asked casually. Mission didn't go well? Huh? Gagiel blinked, clearly surprised that Rhodes was even speaking to him. Nah, it was easy. Rhodes looked him over. No visible wounds, no signs of a fight. But the delay still didn't make sense. Was he just being stubborn? Or was there something else? Either way, the master had assigned someone to keep an eye on him. Let the old man worry about it. After claiming his reward, Gagiel slapped a large request down on the counter. This is still a tavern, right? I want meat. And wine. In truth, Gagiel also wanted to snack on some iron, but he figured there was no way that would be on the menu. Most people in his position would try to sit somewhere low-key, maybe off in a corner. But Gagiel Red Fox wasn't like most people. He marched straight to the very center table of the tavern without even blinking. The people who had been sitting there exchanged looks and were clearly annoyed, ready to shoo him away. But when they glanced at the master's face and saw his unspoken warning, they swallowed their complaints and stood up, quietly moving to another table with gloomy expressions. Gagiel didn't care in the slightest. He dug into his food, scarfed it down like a wild animal, wiped his mouth with the back of his hand, and stood up to leave without a word. Hold on a second. Myra called after him. Gagiel stopped and instinctively took a half step back. He remembered very clearly how this woman had almost shattered his iron scales with a single punch. His bones still remembered the pain. Realizing he had just backed away, he immediately stepped forward again, trying to save face. He straightened his back and put on a cocky smirk. What? You got a problem? Myra didn't flinch. She pointed at the broken fork handle still sticking out of his mouth. Don't walk off with the utensils. Where's the knife? Huh? Gagiel blinked, pulling the fork out of his mouth. Or rather, what was left of it? Only the handle remained. Myra sighed, remembering that this guy was an Iron Dragon's lair. You'll need to pay for the broken tableware, she said, shaking her head. Also, just out of curiosity, how many pounds of iron can you eat in one meal? Gagiel frowned. Why are you asking? Our cook can already make things like the flame-grilled set for Natsu. Myra explained patiently. I figured a steel meal might be doable. I'll check with the kitchen later. You. Gagiel stared at her. There wasn't an ounce of hostility in her voice. She sounded normal. Friendly, even. Compared to everyone else in the guild who still looked at him like a ticking time bomb, Myra's tone actually felt gentle. Was this really the same demon woman who cracked his armor and left him aching for days? The one who almost beat him senseless in their first encounter? Once you're part of the guild, Myra said with a calm smile. You're one of us. The guild's things belong to everyone. So next time, just order properly instead of chewing the cutlery. Thanks. The words caught in Gagiel's throat. He felt like he should say it, but it wasn't easy. I got it. I'll pay for the fork. He tried to keep his usual gruff tone and, without missing a beat, chomped down the rest of the fork handle with a loud grunge. Then he pulled out a large bill, tossed it onto the counter, and waved his hand behind him as he walked away. For a bunch of loudmouths, this guild's surprisingly naggy. The nearby members couldn't hold it in anymore. What did you say, jerk? Myra was being so kind to you. What's with the attitude? Yeah. Apologize to her already. But Gagiel didn't stop walking. He kept striding forward and only turned back briefly at the door. Doesn't matter. I just came here to pick up jobs. I'm not trying to make friends. With that, Gagiel left without a second glance. What a rude guy. Some of the guild members muttered, still glaring at the door. We should teach him a lesson one of these days. It's not that serious, Myra said with a gentle smile as she collected the empty dishes. Maybe he's just not used to it yet. Gabriel seemed like someone with a hard time opening up. Myra figured what he really needed was a good sparring match or two with his fellow guildmates. That might help him start fitting in. She wondered for a moment whether she should ask Rhodes to challenge him. Gabriel definitely hadn't gotten over their last fight. Just as Rhodes was about to say something to her, Master Makarov came walking down from upstairs, holding a folded magazine under his arm. Master? I'm going to talk to Gabriel, Makarov said calmly. He just needs a little more time. The next morning, Rhodes had breakfast at Myra's house before heading to the guild. Rhodes was holding a bouquet he had picked out earlier. Before they went too far, he held it up for Myra to inspect. What do you think? The bouquet was made of yellow and white chrysanthemums, with a few sprigs of eucalyptus for decoration. It was wrapped with white snow pear paper on the inside, black wrapping paper on the outside, and tied neatly with a ribbon. Myra looked it over carefully, then gave a small nod. She took Rhodes's arm and smiled. Today, they were going to visit Lysana. For them, it was never really about the flowers. As long as they were white or yellow and heartfelt, it was enough. But even so, Myra was genuinely happy that Rhodes had put so much care into it. Chapter 423, Gabriel getting beaten. The early morning sun was filtered through soft white clouds, casting only a pale, gentle light over the land. By noon, the sky had cleared. The sun now shone warmly, bright, but not scorching, as it bathed the cemetery in gold. 3 figures stood quietly beneath its rays. The cemetery lay behind Cathedral. Lysana's grave was nestled among many others, modest and humble. Though it had rained several times recently, her grave was clean and well kept. Lysana, we came to visit you, Myra said softly as she knelt by the grave. You probably don't know yet, but the guild was rebuilt a while ago. It's still just as lively as ever. Everyone's full of energy. And of course, Elfman and I are too. She went on to share both big and small things that had happened lately. Myra even told her about the pajama party she hosted in the girls' dorm a few days back. Whenever she mentioned something funny, she chuckled lightly, just like she would if Lisa were really sitting there, listening. It wasn't disrespectful at all. If anything, laughter made the moment more genuine. Myra believed with all her heart that if Lysana were watching from another world, she'd much rather see her family smiling than mourning. Myra liked to believe her little sister could still hear her. And there's one more important thing I wanted to tell you. Her cheeks turned a delicate shade of pink. She stood up and gently took hold of Rhodes's arm. This is Rhodes. You've seen him before. Last week. He proposed to me. They looked at each other, warm and shy, before kneeling to place the bouquet in front of the grave. Rhodes didn't say a word, but Myra quietly began sharing all their wedding plans with Lysana, as if painting a picture just for her. Once she had said everything she wanted to say, Myra fell silent. She stood for a long while, eyes resting on the name etched into the stone. At last, she reached out and brushed her fingertips across Lysana's name, a tender smile forming on her face. Your sister is going to do her best to live happily. I'll take good care of Elfman too. So, you do your best over there, okay? Don't worry about us. Well then. That's it for today. I'll come visit again soon. It was time to leave. Myra gently took Rhodes's hand, and Rhodes gave a soft wave toward the grave before holding her hand with both of his. Myra looked at him and smiled, her eyes telling him there was no need for any more words, she was okay. Let's go, Elfman. But Elfman didn't move. You go ahead, sis. I want to talk to Lysana alone for a while. Myra paused, noticing that he hadn't said much earlier. Her little brother had grown up. Maybe there were things he could no longer say, even to her. All right. Just don't stay too long. I know. He watched them leave in silence, not moving until their silhouettes disappeared down the hill. Then, quietly, he crouched in front of the grave and gently brushed away some imaginary dust. Hey, Lysana. Sis wasn't joking back there. She really is getting married. The same sister we were all worried would never find anyone. He glanced back with a slightly guilty expression before continuing. And it's not like she was forced, or hiding anything on purpose. I mean, yeah, sis has changed a lot, but it's still hard to believe sometimes. And that Rhodes guy. He's really a man. Elfman sighed and sat cross-legged in front of the grave, mumbling to Lysana like he used to when they were kids. He poured his heart out, rambling through stories and thoughts only a little brother could share with a big sister gone too soon. Meanwhile, Rhodes and Myra didn't wait around on purpose. It was nearly the end of the month, and plenty of tasks still needed handling back at the guild. On the way back, Myra stopped by a newsstand and bought a newspaper, handing it to Rhodes with a smile. Here, Forgot to grab it this morning. Rhodes accepted it with a nod. He had made a habit of keeping up with the news, ever since he first started studying the everyday life and culture of this world. He glanced over the front page casually, then froze. The headline read, Heartfilia Group declares bankruptcy. Chairman Jude Heartfilia reported missing. Lucy's family? Rhodes muttered in disbelief. Just a week ago, the news only mentioned that the Heartfilia Group was facing financial strain. Now, bankruptcy? And her father, the chairman, had disappeared? How could a railway empire collapse this fast? And the family had vanishing too. His brow furrowed. Myra leaned closer, eyes widening. Something happened to Lucy's family? Rhodes handed her the paper. Looks like it. Lucy might not know yet. Myra flipped through the article quickly, then looked up with concern. Even if she said she cut ties with her father, he's still her family. If he's missing, she deserves to know. Rhodes nodded. Let's get back to the guild. But just before they could reach it, they spotted a familiar figure stumbling toward them on the road. Gabriel? Wait. What happened to him? His hair was a mess, his clothes dusty and torn in places. A thin cut above his brow bled slightly, and the corner of his mouth was bruised. Scrapes ran along his arms. He looked like he'd just walked away from a brutal fight. Rhodes immediately wondered if Natsu had challenged him again. But no, Natsu's usual scuffles didn't leave people bleeding like this. Gabriel looked up, eyes heavy with something unreadable. Without a word, he trudged past the two of them. Hey, what happened? Rhodes called out, watching Gabriel's back as he staggered away. He couldn't ignore it. If someone had targeted Gabriel, they might be targeting the guild too. Even if the fight had been personal, Gabriel was still a member of Fairy Tail now, officially acknowledged by Master Makarov. That meant protecting him was part of the deal. But Gabriel didn't seem interested in their concern. Without turning around, he growled. Nothing happened. It's none of your business. Rhodes and Myra exchanged a look of concern, but there wasn't much else they could do. So they headed back to the guild to see if anyone else knew what had happened. The guild seemed as lively as ever. The usual chaos filled the air, people chatting, drinking, arguing over petty nonsense. The only thing missing was the rowdiest bunch. Even Lucy wasn't around. The second Makarov spotted the two entering, he jumped off the bar counter and made a sneaky beeline for the stairs. Rhodes squinted. He definitely just swiped a bottle of booze again. That tiny, ridiculous sight actually reassured him. If the old man was up to his usual antics, things probably weren't too serious after all. Still, Rhodes decided to check the mission records just to be sure. Seeking a magic classroom teacher to help teach children. Assigned to Gabriel? Rhodes read the name 3 times, not quite trusting his eyes. Gabriel? A teacher? That doesn't sound right at all. He hadn't even been gone that long. Had he been beaten up by some angry parents for scaring their kids? When he showed the mission log to Myra, she looked just as confused. But then Levy quietly approached and sat down beside them, looking nervous. Miss Myra, Rhodes. We just saw Lexus. Her voice was unusually soft and hesitant. Myra immediately straightened up. Lexus? What did he say this time? Did he cause trouble again? Levy bit her lip and shook her head. No. He didn't say much. But he beat up Gabriel. Badly. That answered everything. So that's what had happened. Rhodes and Myra both fell silent for a moment. They understood now why Gabriel had looked the way he did. But what they didn't understand was why. Wasn't Lexus the one always claiming he didn't care about the guild's choices? Why would he go out of his way to pick a fight with Gabriel? Rhodes frowned deeply. What happened exactly? Chapter 424, Radical Lexus. It was actually our fault. Levy said quietly, guilt written all over her face. After Rhodes, Myra, and Elfman had left that morning, Levy spotted a job request for a magic classroom, helping teach magic to kids, and was eager to take it. But she hesitated for a moment and someone else beat her to it. That someone was Gabriel. Levy, who had already missed out on a few jobs in the past few days, couldn't hold back her frustration and got into a brief argument with Gabriel. But he didn't back down. He took the job and left the guild with his usual swagger. Technically, he hadn't broken any rules. He had every right to take a job he wanted. Still, Levy left the guild fuming. Jet and Roy had seen the whole exchange, and they couldn't stand the way Gabriel strutted around like he owned the place. So they chased after him, determined to teach him a lesson for both Levy's sake and their own lingering grudges. Levy, worried things would get out of hand, followed them. She was scared, but she didn't want anyone to get hurt. The situation escalated quickly. Jet and Roy confronted Gabriel and picked a fight. Levy stayed back, calling out from behind a tree, begging them to stop. Then, out of nowhere, Lexus appeared. At first, He just mocked them with his usual snide remarks, but then he suddenly launched an attack right at Gagiel. Jet and Roy were shocked. While their fight had at least stayed within reason, Lixus wasn't holding back at all. He attacked with full strength, like he meant to seriously injure or even knock Gagiel out of commission. Gagiel, for his part, never fought back. Not even once. He just took the hits, whether it was from Jet, Roy, or Lixus. It was clear he had no intention of retaliating. When Jet and Roy realized how far Lixus was going, they tried to step in and stop him. That's when it happened. Lixus, looking furious, turned his rage on Levy and fired a bolt of lightning magic straight at her. And Gagiel, who just minutes ago had been the one they resented, threw himself in the way of the blast. If he hadn't shielded her, Levy might have ended up in the infirmary or worse. The fact that someone like Gagiel, who had once hurt them, was now the one protecting her, while a supposed comrade like Lixus had attacked her without hesitation, left them all shaken. It changed everything. Jet and Roy didn't know what to think anymore. Their enemy had shown more heart than their guildmate. As the master often said, sometimes fighting is the best way to understand each other. And now, after this clash, they finally began to understand what was in Gagiel's heart. Beneath that rough, solitary exterior, he was deeply remorseful. He wanted to be part of the guild, truly. But they still didn't understand what Lixus was thinking. Maybe Lixus really didn't see people like them, the so-called weak ones, as guildmates at all. Levy bowed her head, her voice trembling a little. If it hadn't been for us, Gagiel never would have crossed paths with Lixus. He wouldn't be hurt right now. Don't take all the responsibility on yourself. Myra gently reached out and ruffled Levy's hair. In our guild, it's not unusual for people to fight just because they don't like someone. What happened today was just one of those unexpected things. Yeah. Levy looked up into Myra's eyes and nodded softly. Then, with a faint blush, she pushed Myra's hand away. I'm not a kid anymore. Even so, it was clear Gagiel really was tough as iron, especially his attitude. Rhodes paused in thought. So how did it end? Did Lixus just stop? Levy nodded slowly. He said it was boring. And then left. He looked really angry too. The one who got beat up didn't say anything and walked off quietly, but the one who did the beating ended up even more furious. It made no sense. Lixus has been crossing the line lately, Myra said, her tone turning sharp. He used to just be distant, but now he's constantly throwing out insults. A while back, he nearly started another fight, and now he's attacking people like Levy. Rhodes sighed. The master's already tried to talk to him so many times, but it doesn't seem to be working. This wasn't a regular scuffle between guildmates. It wasn't sparring or a heated exchange of words. It was a deliberate and harsh attack, like how you'd treat an enemy, not a comrade. Rhodes wasn't sure how other guilds handled things like this, but here in Fairy Tale, it was serious. He might not be expelled, but some kind of punishment was inevitable. At the very least, Master Mikarev would give him a harsh warning, maybe even lay down some consequences like suspending his missions. That would force Lixus to stay in the guild on probation. A formal apology was another possibility, but knowing Lixus, he'd probably rather quit the guild and say sorry. I'm sorry, Levy. Mikarev walked over and bowed his head gently. I won't let this slide. He'll have to face real consequences this time. You don't have to apologize, Master. Levy said quietly. Her voice was soft, as always. She had been gentle ever since she was little, even when people mistreated her, she rarely held a grudge. But Makarov couldn't let it go. Every member of Fairy Tale was like a child to him. Even though Lixus was his grandson, favoritism had no place here. The next time Lixus returned, Mikarev would make sure both Levy and Gagiel got the apology they deserved. With the issue temporarily set aside, Rhodes and Myra returned to their regular work. Then, the guild doors flew open with a loud crash. Is Lixus back? Natsu burst into the hall, eyes burning with fire. Come out and duel me. Mikau leaned on the counter and smirked. You again? Have you already forgotten how badly Lixus beat you last year? Natsu shouted. That doesn't count. I was still a kid last year. Mikau raised an eyebrow. It was true last year, and somehow not true this year? Natsu ignored him, scanning the room before rushing to the counter. Rhodes, have you seen Lixus? Rhodes shook his head. Nope. I heard he just came back for a quick visit and left. Didn't show up at the guild. Darn it. I finally hear he's back and now he's gone again. You've been out training in the countryside all this time. How'd you even hear about him? We heard someone mention it while buying fish. Happy chimed in as he fluttered over. What now, Natsu? Want to go back? No way. We're already here. Natsu said, clenching his fist. Alright, new plan. Let's go to Lucy's place. Just like that, his mood shifted. The frustration was gone, and he turned on his heel with a grin. Happy flapped his wings excitedly. It's been a while since we visited her. Hold it. Rhodes reached out, trying to stop them. He missed Natsu entirely but managed to catch Happy by the tail. Let go. Happy protested, wriggling in the air. If we're late, we'll miss Lucy complaining about Natsu again. So you're just going to enjoy her scolding like it's a show. Rhodes held out a folded newspaper. Take this to her. And try to actually care about how she's doing, alright? Happy grabbed the paper and zipped out the door without even checking what was inside. Rhodes didn't feel like he had to go himself. Despite Natsu's loud and reckless personality, there was something surprisingly sensitive about him. Maybe it was instinct, or something more human than that. Whatever the reason, whenever a guildmate was feeling down, even if they didn't say anything, Natsu always picked up on it. He would somehow know just what to do without needing to be told. In moments like that, Rhodes could only feel a bit ashamed of himself. He could pick up on Myra's feelings, sure, but as for anyone else? Maybe not as much. Chapter 425, Another Harvest Festival. Sure enough, the next morning, Lucy walked into the guild full of energy, eager to ask about the upcoming Harvest Festival, especially the fairy tale Miss Beauty pageant. You already know about it? Did Natsu and Happy tell you yesterday? Myra asked. Lucy nodded. Yeah. Though all they mentioned was the prize money. They didn't give me many details. In truth, Natsu had barged into her place, trying to nap in her bed and use her shower after sweating all day, so she kicked him out. Happy, however, stuck around long enough to spill the details. 500,000 jewels. That's 7 months of rent. Lucy's eyes sparkled as she mentioned the prize. Just winning this one contest would give her financial peace of mind for a long time. Well, since we're on the topic, let me introduce last year's champion. Rhodes lifted his hands theatrically. Da-da. Mara Jane gave a cheerful wave. That's right. Standing before you is the reigning champion, Miss Mara Jane Strauss. Lucy suddenly felt like 500,000 jewels might be a bit harder to win than she thought. Trying her luck, she asked. Miss Myra, are you planning to enter again this year? Of course. Myra replied with a playful smile. I'm saving up for the wedding, after all. That prize money would just about cover a month's salary for us. Lucy blinked. Wait. Being a waitress pays that much? Myra laughed, but Rhodes stepped in to clarify. We're not your average wait staff. Lockie and the others earn even less. That's amazing. Lucy said, half considering the career switch. But deep down, she still preferred going on adventures. Rhodes shook his head. No way. Compared to the payout from missions, our salaries are peanuts. You could earn what we make in a month in just a few days. Honestly, with the strength Myra and Rhodes had, a monthly salary of a few $100,000 was low. If they worked hard for a month, all they'd earn could barely cover as rent. Still, there were perks. It was safe and comfortable. No harsh weather or unexpected danger. Lucy didn't quite agree. But if a mission fails, you might come back empty-handed. Rhodes gave her a strange look. We don't just go around wrecking everything. If you had teamed up with me for your past missions, you'd already be swimming in jewels. No more stressing about that 70,000 rent. What do you mean by swimming in jewels? Lucy is already. Myra caught herself mid-sentence and looked at Lucy apologetically. It's fine, really. Lucy said, trying to keep her tone light. She already knew what Myra was referring to. The Heartfilia group had gone bankrupt. But Lucy had long let go of any plans to rely on her family's wealth. Since she'd left home, she'd never expected to lean on her father again. So it didn't matter what became of the company. As for her dad, the only thing she knew for certain was that the man was capable. Her mother had always admired and trusted him. If anyone could bounce back, it was him. Lucy figured he'd build something new in time. Still, she intended to visit her mother's grave soon. Maybe she'd ask around for news of him while she was at it. Putting those thoughts aside, Lucy asked about last year's contestants and the magic parade. Rhodes and Myra described everything in detail, and Lucy soaked it all in, filled with anticipation. Time passed quickly, and before long, October arrived. Magnolia grew more festive by the day. For Rhodes, October meant one thing, payday. He dragged Myra into a jewelry store, but she quickly pulled him back out. You really aren't going to exchange it? Nope. This one's special. I want to keep it forever. She narrowed her eyes. You made it yourself with magic, didn't you? It's one of a kind, right? Absolutely. Rhodes swore. I won't make another. Good. Myra stood on tiptoe and kissed his cheek. That's your reward. Rhodes gave her a playful look. Not enough. Then too bad. Fine, I'll give the ring back. Don't even think about it. They chased each other all the way to the bank. On the way, they spotted Kana slumped against a wall, clearly drunk. She had a bottle beside her and her shoulder bag was half open on the ground. Her hair was messy, and she was only wearing a bra as usual. Kana was a famous wizard after all, and the residents of Magnolia were used to it, but those who were not familiar with her found it very exciting. The beautiful facial features, the innocent drunken state, the roundness, and the slender waist made it easy for people to have criminal thoughts. But the emblem on her waist had a certain dissuading effect, so people dared not act rashly. Rhodes shook his head. It's a pity that she can fall asleep and not be afraid of being picked up by others. What? Just take advantage of her being drunk and speak of the devil. There are always many tourists from other places before and after the harvest festival, and there are also some bold guys among them. At this moment, two people strolled in front of Kana, one with yellow hair and one with green hair. The yellow-haired one skillfully touched Kana's messenger bag, and the green-haired one was eager to reach out. Hey, this is a wizard from Fairy Tale, don't wake her up. How can she wake up so easily when she is so drunk? The green-haired one stretched out his hands with a clear purpose. Before Rhodes and Myra could make a move, the wine bottle on the ground was already in Kana's hand, and smashed on the green-haired head with a bang. The green-haired young man rolled his eyes and fell down, glass fragments flew, and the remaining wine and water splashed all over his head and face. The yellow-haired one who was rummaging through the bag seemed to have touched a card, and a golden electric light enveloped his whole body. The young man twitched and fell down, and the yellow-haired hair turned into curly hair in an instant. Kana acted as if nothing had happened. She raised the neck of the bottle in her hand and poured it out, muttering no more wine, give me another bottle, and fell asleep again in a daze. Rhodes now knew why Kana dared to sleep on the street. But it was not good to leave her alone like this, send her home, or take her to the guild. Myra thought for a moment and took out a stack of banknotes from her bag. You go save the money first, I'll take care of Kana. Okay. Rhodes nodded. It was indeed more convenient for Myra to take care of Kana, and there was no need to worry about her being unable to move. It felt a bit subtle to take money from Myra in a scene other than salary distribution. Hey, passbook. Myra had already picked up Kana and was too lazy to look through her bag. Deposit it in your account, it's the same anyway. In the bathroom of Kana's house, Myra soaked Kana's clothes in a basin, and went outside to boil water to make tea. She also went to the closet to find a set of clothes. Kana herself was soaking in the bathtub, and she looked much more sober. Myra, will he come back this year? I don't know, there is no news at all. Myra knew she was talking about guild arts. Kana had previously told Myra about her relationship with guild arts and asked Myra to keep it a secret. Myra was still very tight-lipped about such important matters, so she didn't even tell Rhodes about this. Is that so? Kana hugged her legs and let her long hair fall into the water and flow gently. The most well-informed person in the guild, besides the president, was Myra. If even she didn't know, then there was nothing that could be done. Myra comforted her. I think he should be back soon. After all, it's been 3 years. Yeah. Kana replied softly, her voice barely above a whisper. Silence lingered between them. After a moment, Myra asked gently. What will happen when he comes back? Will things be the same? He's such a powerful and respected wizard. If I can't become an S-class wizard, I won't feel qualified. Blood ties aren't something you need to qualify for. They exist from the moment you're born. Myra had said something similar before, but Kana only shook her head. Years of hesitation, missed chances, and shrinking away from the truth had made it hard for her to speak her heart. She used to dream of reuniting with him once she became an S-class wizard. But she had failed the exam 4 years in a row. Worse still, she hadn't heard from guild arts in 3 years. Being a wizard meant facing danger at every turn. No matter how strong you were, accidents could still happen. Kana tried not to worry, but the unease never left her. It lingered under the surface, missing him, feeling unsure, even dealing with heartbreak earlier this year. Everything seemed to pile up. Drinking was the only way she could push it all aside for a little while and breathe. Myra could only watch with concern. From her perspective, Kana had the strength and experience to succeed. But the timing was poor. Rhodes had just said he wanted to pass the S-class exam this year and celebrate with a double joy, his advancement and their future together. And with his current strength, Myra knew it would be hard for anyone to stop him. He had also been Kana's partner in last year's exam, so he was already familiar with her magic and her fighting style. Unless Kana made a breakthrough soon, she wouldn't be able to win. Myra couldn't ask her to give up, but she didn't want to hold Rhodes back either. All she could do was try to encourage Kana or wait and see how the exam turned out. The more she thought about it, the more frustrated she became. At one point, she even imagined guild arts returning, and her punching him first, just to ask why he had never acknowledged his daughter. Though realistically, even she would have a hard time winning that fight. Her mind spun through a dozen ideas. She wished she could talk it all over with Rhodes. Kana had calmed down a little by then. She stepped out of the bath, dripping wet, and squatted beside Myra with a sly look. "You've only been apart from your fiancé for a little while, and you're already thinking about him?" "I wasn't," Myra answered quickly. "There's nothing to think about." "But you were muttering his name just now," Kana teased. Myra tossed a towel at her. "Dry off and get dressed. We're going to the guild later." Kana dried herself lazily and started wringing the water out of her hair. "TSK, TSK. The mighty demon of the past has become a bashful bride-to-be. If it were you back then, you'd have." She began mimicking Myra's old mannerisms and tone with exaggerated expressions. Having been one of the earliest members of her generation to join the guild, Kana had watched everyone grow. She had seen what Mirza, Natsu, Gray, and Myra were like when they were young. She remembered all the awkward stories and knew everyone's embarrassing moments. Myra laughed, rising to her feet. "Then let me show you that the demon hasn't gone anywhere." She reached out her hands like claws, playfully lunging at Kana. Kana, who had stood there confidently just a moment ago, suddenly became a little shy. She tried to dodge. "Why are you so good at that? Don't tell me someone's been." Myra blushed and grabbed her. "I told you to stop talking nonsense." Ah. It wasn't surprising to see them play fighting like this. Time passed quickly in the guild, full of laughter and chatter. As October rolled in, the festive spirit grew stronger. Everyone naturally gave themselves a break from missions, choosing instead to drink, talk, and spar while waiting for the harvest festival to arrive. Gray hadn't gone on any jobs lately. He had been teaming up with Juvia, but said it was getting too troublesome and that he would return to his old team after the festival. At this point, more than half a month had passed, and he'd already brought Juvia along on many missions, enough to count as the end of her rookie period. After all, she had been one of the 4 elemental members of Phantom Lord. She didn't need too much hand-holding. Still, Juvia was clearly upset. She'd occasionally mutter things like, "Don't seduce Gray-sama," to nearly every girl in the guild who talked to Gray. She was convinced someone was trying to steal him away. Naturally, her biggest concerns were Mirza and Lucy from the strongest team. Mirza didn't pay it much attention. If she was in a good mood, she'd ask what was going on. If not, she'd respond with a glare that sent Juvia reeling. But Juvia would then imagine a whole dramatic scene in her mind, convinced that Mirza's reactions were some kind of provocation or romantic warning. Lucy, on the other hand, didn't have the same kind of patience. Being stared at so intensely made her feel uneasy. "What should I do, Miss Myra?" Lucy asked with a troubled look. "Is there any way to make Juvia stop staring at me like that?" Myra didn't seem interested in solving the problem. She just found it amusing. "Juvia sees you as a rival. Did you ever try explaining things to her?" "I told her I don't have those kinds of feelings for Gray." Lucy groaned and ran her hands through her hair. "But she still calls me a rival every time she sees me." Myra paused to think, then smiled mischievously. "Well, maybe Gray does have feelings for you." "Huh?" Lucy's face flushed. "No way. That can't be true." Myra grinned. "Of course it could. You are very cute, after all." Chapter 426, Unaware. "Don't joke like that," Lucy said, feeling a chill run down her spine. "I'm not joking," Myra replied with a smile. "I really think Gray treats you a little differently." What's different about it? "Let's see. Like how he always walks around naked in front of you, or how he casually breaks into your house." "Gray walks around naked in front of everyone. That's just a weird habit, not something special. And him breaking into my house is just part of the problem." Suddenly, Juvia floated behind Lucy like a ghost. Half her face was covered in shadow as she whispered in a chilling voice. "Love rival." "Ah." Lucy jumped in fear and spun around. "I told you, it's not like that." Juvia stared at her for a moment longer, then drifted away like mist. "So, it's Natsu, right?" Myra continued, clearly enjoying the conversation. "Think about it. Natsu treats you differently too. Ever since you joined the guild, he's always looked out for you. Didn't Mr. Rhodes say it's a guild tradition for senior members to help newcomers?" Myra nodded. "Yes, I was in charge of looking after Rhodes when he first joined. When Juvia joined, Gray looked after her. So as for you..." She conveniently ignored the cases of Tano and Gajiel. Lucy started to buy into it. She thought back on everything that had happened since she joined the guild, and all the times Natsu had accidentally or not, gotten a little too close. Her face turned redder with each memory. "No way. Me and Natsu?" The imaginative girl in her conjured up a mental image. Natsu was suddenly drawn in a shoujo manga style, standing in front of a background of peach-colored flowers, reaching out to her with a charming smile. No, no, no. Impossible. Lucy shook her head furiously to clear the vision. People who go on missions together all the time often develop feelings. Myra added, leaning in with a grin. Look at Jet and Roy with Lovey, Elzik and Biska, and Rhodes and me. And you know how those turned out. Except for Jet and Roy, who were a bit of a mess, Lucy knew the rest were couples. She covered her head, flustered. If it goes on like this. Lucy? Natsu appeared right on cue. He suddenly placed a hand on her shoulder and said. I've got something to talk to you about. Nope. 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 Lucy yelped like she'd touched a live wire. She bolted out of the guild, screaming as she ran. Natsu blinked. What's with her? Myra giggled quietly. She might be mad. Why don't you catch up and check? Natsu took off after her, and Happy flapped along behind him. Just then, Rhodes returned after placing their order and handed the receipt to Myra. What's going on? I saw Natsu running toward Lucy's house. I think she was chasing him. Myra looked puzzled. Wasn't it the other way around? I thought Lucy was running away. Rhodes thought for a second, then nodded. No, Natsu definitely ran first. How strange. Myra muttered. Anyway, let's not worry about that. What do you think I should do to win the competition tomorrow? It might be tough. Rhodes said, settling beside her and resting his cheek on one hand. The more he looked at her, the more dazzling she seemed. Unfortunately. It's a pity I'm going to lower your popularity. Rhodes said with a playful blink. If I had waited a few more days to propose, the situation might have looked better. Myra chuckled. Hee hee, if something like that makes me lose, then it's not a loss at all. Popularity wasn't something she cared about. She had already decided to enjoy herself tomorrow. Rhodes grinned and leaned closer. You're so good at saying the right things. I'll give you a reward. Myra pushed his face away. Don't start. The next day, October 7th was the day of the Harvest Festival. Rhodes spent the morning directing a few guild members in setting up the venue, while Myra led the waitresses in cleaning and hanging festive decorations. Master Mikarev wandered through the guild with his hands behind his back, quickly realizing he had absolutely nothing to do. With the council disbanded, there were no more self-criticisms to write, and guild affairs were running smoothly. His free time had only grown lately. Most of his current efforts went into collecting intel on the council's remnants, dark guild activity, movements on the western continent, and his troublesome son. But nothing urgent stood out today. So instead, he focused on the event that truly mattered right now, the Miss Fairy Tale contest. The guild was quickly transformed into a festival space. Colorful decorations adorned the walls, and a small stage stood in the center, ready for the contestants to show off their charm. Loki's not participating again this year? Rhodes asked as he adjusted some signs. With your new short haircut and the glasses vibe, you'd probably be a hit. Loki smirked. Sister Myra is standing right here, you know. You sure you want to say that? She was clearly hoping to witness some Myra-style retaliation. Rhodes shrugged. Why not? Just testing the threat level of her rivals. No need for that. I'm not signing up. And just so you know, Sally and Izzy aren't either. Loki added, crossing her arms. Mickey's skipping it too. She's campaigning for a bare-handed combat tournament instead. That sounds exactly like her. Rhodes said with a laugh. If she can't knock down buildings anymore, she'll find a way to punch things for prize money. As they talked, the final preparations in the guild wrapped up. Rhodes checked the time, clapped, and called out. All right, the contest starts in an hour. If you've got nothing left to prep, go enjoy the festival. A cheer erupted, and the crowd poured out of the guild, leaving behind the 7 contestants, the host Max, and a few friends and family members. The participants lined up to draw their lots and receive number tags. Once they had their numbers, they were free to relax until the show began. Kana stood nearby with a bottle in hand, looking conflicted. Last year, she had gotten drunk before her turn and passed out on stage. She'd wanted the 500,000 jewel prize for booze money, but ended up embarrassing herself. This year, she still wanted that prize, but she also wanted to perform properly. She eyed the bottle but held off. Since I'm the first to go, I'll just tough it out for a bit. She muttered, turning and heading outside for a walk. There's a thought about walking around with her best friend Biska, but Elzik had already taken her hand and led her out, face completely red. It was one of those awkward situations, when your best friend had a boyfriend and you didn't. Meanwhile, Juvia had already darted off with one goal in mind, find Gray. She'd recently heard a rumor that couples who went shopping together during the Harvest Festival would eventually end up together. This rumor had quietly spread throughout the guild, and many suspected Myra was behind it. What Rhodes didn't know was that he had unintentionally played a part in starting the whole thing. He was chatting with Myra. "What number did you draw?" "Number 3. Myra showed the round number plate in her hand. "That's a strong position. Important spot in the lineup. It suits you perfectly. You really know how to talk." Myra grinned and slapped the number plate onto Rhodes's chest. The plate was actually a minor magic item. No matter where it was placed, it would stick securely on its own. The hold wasn't strong though, so it could be peeled off easily. Rhodes didn't bother removing it right away. Instead, he threw one hand in the air, struck a dramatic pose, and said in an exaggerated voice like Max. "Now entering the stage, contestant number 3 in the Miss Fairy Tale contest. Rhodes." Myra clapped along and teased. "Go, Miss Rhodes." Rhodes blew her a kiss. "Thank you, Mr. Myra. Don't forget to vote for me. Love you." Myra's small fist thumped his chest in reply, making him cough. Elsewhere, Jet and Roy were still arguing about who should invite Levy out to walk around the festival. Levy blinked and said, "Why not all 3 of us go together, like always?" "Not today." Jet and Roy replied in perfect unison. Their argument escalated from words to headbutts, then to full-on wrestling. No one bothered stopping them. Levy gave a helpless sigh, then turned to Lucy. "Lou, want to go out together?" "Sure." Lucy smiled, happy for the distraction. She'd thought Levy would already be with her usual team and had been wondering whether to catch up with Rizza. At that moment, Myra and Rhodes finished joking around and walked toward the guild doors, hand in hand. Myra looked over and asked, "Wait, isn't Lucy with Natsu today?" Lucy groaned. "Please don't bring him up." "Huh? Didn't he come to you again yesterday? Did you two fight?" "It's worse than a fight." Lucy sighed. Myra tilted her head. "Worse how?" Lucy looked embarrassed. "You teased me so much yesterday I actually started wondering if Natsu liked me. I got so nervous, I kept thinking about it whenever I saw him. And then?" Myra leaned in, clearly enjoying the story. "And then?" Lucy said, voice dropping. "Natsu showed up at my door before I even got back, just waiting for me. I panicked and kicked him out without asking anything." Myra gasped. "You didn't even let him talk?" "No. And then he shouted as he left, 'I'll wait for you in the park. There's something important I need to tell you. You better come.'" Myra's eyes sparkled. "So what did you do?" "What do you think I did?" Lucy said, flustered. "I took a long bath, picked out clothes, asked Cancer to fix my hair. I even rehearsed how to reject him gently." She looked completely defeated. "But when I got there, full of nerves, Natsu was digging a hole under a tree." "Digging?" Levy echoed. "Digging. He swore there was buried treasure under the roots and asked me to call Virgo to help excavate." Lucy slumped. "I've never been so embarrassed in my life." Levy patted her back. Rhodes tried hard not to laugh and gently patted Myra on the back. She was clearly the mastermind behind Lucy's embarrassment. Myra, for her part, was barely holding back her own laughter. She had joked about "does someone like you?" plenty of times before, and had heard it from others just as often. But no one had ever reacted quite like Lucy, and the timing of everything made the whole situation even funnier. Lucy sighed again. "I feel like such a fool." Myra nodded with exaggerated seriousness. "Exactly. Before running off, you should have at least asked what treasure was buried in the park." Lucy looked helpless. "That's not the point." Myra's priorities were clearly skewed. Even Rhodes joined in. "So what kind of treasure was it?" Lucy groaned. "You too, Mr. Rhodes?" Levy gave Lucy a sympathetic pat on the back. "You're just unlucky to be surrounded by these two." But Lucy thought about it for a second and said, "I think I heard Natsu mention something about an album that the master hid there a long time ago. It's supposed to have embarrassing pictures of a lot of guild members." Rhodes perked up. "I definitely have to go dig that up." "Don't you dare." Levy suddenly panicked. "That thing's real? You absolutely cannot dig it up." She had grown up in the guild, so if that album really existed, she was probably in it. Myra shrugged. "We should go take a look sometime, right?" She didn't mind at all. Rhodes had already shown her a bunch of embarrassing photos from her own childhood. At this point, she was just curious what his baby pictures looked like. But unfortunately, she'd never had the chance to see any. Before they knew it, the conversation had shifted from Lucy's mishap to a discussion about old photos and forgotten albums. As the group left the guild together, Lucy quickly became distracted by the bustling festival scene and forgot all about her embarrassment. The streets were packed with cheerful voices and the calls of vendors. If you weren't careful, it was easy to get separated in the crowd. Rhodes instinctively held Myra close as they walked through the busy streets. Somewhere along the way, they lost sight of Lucy and Levy. They stopped to enjoy street performances and try their hand at small festival games. Before long, the richer aromas of festival food filled the air. Rhodes, keeping his promise, summoned Worm. Back when Worm had helped with chores, Rhodes had promised to take him out for a feast during the harvest festival. Worm happily sniffed the air, as excited as a 200-kilogram child let loose in a candy store. Myra sighed. If we let Worm eat as much as he wants, our monthly budget is going to explode. She had often fed him without a second thought, but now that she was being more careful with money, she realized just how much it could add up. Rhodes shrugged. If we stick to the basics, he doesn't need that much. It's only when you spoil him that he becomes a bottomless pit. He added. Usually we just let him hang out at the guild. Everyone feeds him bits and pieces. Though, he never comes in the summer. Hates the heat. Worm disliked hot weather so much, he lost his appetite. That's how Myra knew he could actually manage on less if needed. Right now though, Worm was energetic and focused. He pointed with one paw toward a nearby stall. Rhodes paid for 2 ice creams, one for Worm, and one for Myra. Myra accepted hers with a smile, took a bite, and continued walking at a leisurely pace. Just then, Rhodes noticed a familiar flash of green hair from the corner of his eye, near the entrance of a narrow alley. That was Freed, wasn't it? Myra looked around but didn't spot him. Could be. I haven't seen the Thunder God tribe for months. It wasn't strange to run into them now. After all, it was the Harvest Festival. Everyone was bound to show up eventually. Chapter 427, Beauty Pageant and Incident. Is it about time? Rhodes glanced at the sun and figured it was best to head back to the competition. Myra nodded. Yeah, but Worm doesn't look satisfied yet. If we let him eat as much as he wants, even a year wouldn't be enough. Let's take him out again after the competition. Rhodes paused, then grinned. Or maybe you should bring him on stage with you. Might earn some extra votes from the audience. Myra laughed. Sure, Worm can dance with me. Last year, Mickey had brought her magical bird on stage. It wouldn't be strange for Myra to include her companion this time. Rumor had it that Lucy was planning a cheerleading routine with Virgo. According to Happy, who was willing to sell such valuable intelligence for a single bite of braised fish, it was all set. Yes, just one bite. To Happy, anything Lucy did was rarely worth more than that. Rhodes turned back to Myra. Have you decided what you're going to perform? Of course, she said, smirking. You just need to sit tight and enjoy the show. Then I'll look forward to it. It was nice to have a few surprises now and then. Worm followed the two of them reluctantly. There were still plenty of delicious things left at the stalls he hadn't gotten to try. But Myra had promised, if she won the prize money, she'd use part of it to treat him to all kinds of food. That lifted Worm's spirits immediately. Back at the guild, the crowd had grown. Contestants had all returned, and members and visitors alike gathered to watch the show. The place was packed. On stage, Max was already doing his warm-up routine, cracking jokes and firing up the audience. It sounded awkward, but Max had a knack for this. He loved events like these and always complained the guild didn't host enough of them. There really are a lot of people here. Rhodes muttered. What he wanted to say was, there sure are a lot of old perverts. But he kept it to himself. Myra waved to him from the side. I'm heading to the waiting area. Got it. Rhodes stepped forward and attached her number badge to her chest. It goes on the waist. Oh. He took it off and fixed it to her waist, earning a teasing eye roll. You're so shameless. Let's go, Worm. Myra called for Worm and slipped backstage from the side entrance. Rhodes, meanwhile, pulled out a fake work pass he had handwritten earlier and used it as an excuse to squeeze through the crowd, pretending to help with crowd control. To his surprise, the master wasn't in the front row. Scanning the area, he finally spotted McCurve lounging on a throne-like VIP seat near the stage, flanked by Mickey and Worm. On the opposite side, Mikau and Wakaba occupied another VIP bench, their fists clenched with anticipation. Both were waiting for Max to finish his opening remarks already. Finally, Max raised his voice with dramatic flair. Thank you for waiting. The time has come. The finest fairies of Fairy Tale are about to compete in beauty and charm. Let the Fairy Tale Ms. contest begin. Cheers erupted. First up, contestant number 1, the exotic beauty, Canna Albrona. Canna stepped onto the stage in a plain t-shirt and trousers, calm and steady. With a flick of her hand, a shower of magical cards flew into the air, fluttering like butterflies. They circled around her, glowing brightly, and obscured her figure. When the light faded, Canna stood tall in a daring swimsuit. She struck a few confident poses, boldly displaying her curves. Last time, she had passed out drunk before she could perform. This year, she was determined to win the 500,000 J reward and stock up on wine for a good long while. Whoa! A wave of cheers rolled through the audience. Some newcomers whispered that she could become an overnight sensation as a swimsuit model. But while the crowd buzzed, most fairy tale members weren't particularly shocked. Aside from a few of the older gentlemen, the rest of the guild reacted mildly. After all, it was just Kenna switching from trousers to a bikini. Nothing anyone in fairy tale hadn't seen before. Next up is contestant number 2, the rain girl who recently joined our guild and is already making waves. Juvia Loxer. Juvia stepped out with a gentle smile, bowing gracefully to the audience before locking eyes with Gray. "Mr. Gray, please look at me." She stretched out her arms, and her body below the neck turned completely into flowing water. Waves rippled across the stage as she walked, her figure liquefying and swirling with each step. Even Max had to step back as Juvia circled him, displaying flawless control over her magic. When she reformed, her appearance had changed. She now wore a stylish swimsuit. With the waves still moving beneath her, the entire performance had an elegant, dreamlike charm that felt tailor-made for her watery magic. The crowd roared in approval, louder than they had for Kenna. The contrast was striking. Usually, Juvia was all gloom and rain clouds, wrapped tightly in long coats and reserved expressions. And thanks to her past with the Element 4, many people had been a little uneasy around her. But tonight, she shined. Everyone could see the cute side she had hidden away, though clearly, her heart and performance were aimed solely at one man in the crowd. Behind the curtain, Lucy peeked through and pouted. "What is this? Showing off like that?" In the VIP row, Master Makarov quietly dabbed at his nose with a handkerchief. That swimsuit was a masterpiece. He murmured to himself. And now, contestant number 3. She may be known as the demon of fairy tale, but she's also our beloved poster girl, Myra Jane Strauss. Myra took the stage with a soft wave, her signature smile lighting up the guild hall. Trailing behind her was the chubby ball of fur known as Worm, waddling along in sync. The crowd erupted instantly. "She's even more beautiful than in the magazines. She's taken, right? What a shame. Man, I'm so jealous of that Rhodes guy." Rhodes, standing in the front row, felt no offense at all. He was too busy grinning like an idiot, soaking in the jealousy like warm sunlight. Having Myra was a prize worth every insult. He stared intently as Myra stepped forward. He had no idea what she planned to perform, and that only made him more curious. "I'm going to sing and show off a bit of my transformation magic," she said cheerfully. "Since I always sing gentle songs, I thought I'd try something a little different this time. So, transform." Gasps swept through the crowd. "Whoa. She's amazing." Even Rhodes found his eyes widening. Myra had transformed into a bold bunny girl. Red top, black fishnet stockings, a crisp white collar on her neck, and soft bunny ears, one standing tall and the other cutely drooping. A fluffy tail peeked out from behind as she turned. She lifted an electric guitar from Worm's back. At that moment, Mickey's magical bird flitted onto the stage and morphed into a microphone stand. With a confident grin, Myra struck the strings, and a powerful metallic chord echoed through the hall. The sound was sharp and intense, full of raw energy that rippled through the crowd. Rhodes blinked. The tone and the guitar felt familiar. It reminded him of the one used by Videldis, one of the Trinity Raven. And the melody Myra played was clearly inspired by that same aggressive, heavy metal style, except better. So this was what she meant by something different? A bunny girl shredding an electric guitar on stage. This was more than different. It was legendary. As the music blared, Myra leaned into the mic and sang in a deeper, sultry tone, "Don't trust those sweet little eyes. I'm not falling for those eyes. I see through your tricks and games. But somehow, you still call my name." Her voice clashed beautifully with her appearance. Cute bunny outfit, harsh metal music, and intense lyrics, all wrapped into one performance. Those who knew Myra's past weren't surprised. To everyone else, the contrast made her seem even more captivating. The rhythm took hold of the crowd, and their bodies swayed instinctively to the beat. Between verses, they shouted their praise, whistled, and clapped like crazy. Worm, momentarily dazed by the guitar solo, remembered his cue. He flopped onto the stage and began rolling and hopping to the rhythm. Gagiel, who had been lounging in the crowd with a plate of his steel combo meal, sleepily munching away, suddenly sat up straight. He never imagined that Myra, the demon herself, would actually understand his favorite genre of music. He made a mental note to find her later to exchange ideas. Maybe even jam together. Compared to the little devil's temptation, I really want to be an angel. I've always wondered what love tastes like. We'll find out soon enough. Myra only sang the second half of the song due to time constraints, but that didn't reduce the impact. The crowd was captivated. "Sis. That was so manly." Elfman shouted, eyes filled with emotion. He threw his full support behind his sister, uncaring if anyone laughed or if she scolded him later. But even Elfman's booming voice was drowned out by the cheers. The crowd was so loud that Rode couldn't even hear himself. That alone showed how much energy the performance created. When the last note faded, the guitar strings continued to hum faintly. The tension in the air still carried the echo of Meyer's voice and music. Maybe her popularity had dipped a bit now that she was engaged, but it didn't matter. One heavy metal performance had reignited the audience's enthusiasm completely. People had already started writing Meyer's name and number on their ballots. "There's no way I can compete with that," Lucy muttered. Her hopes of winning the prize money drifted further away. Urza, however, clenched her fists. "It's Myra, all right. But I came prepared too." After the performance, Myra bowed lightly. Unlike the other contestants, she didn't head backstage. Instead, she removed her number tag and leapt off the stage. Worm followed her, flailing his little legs midair as he jumped. Myra landed directly in Rhodes' arms. Worm, unfortunately, slammed into the ground like a sack of fluff, going from a soft round puffball to a splattered white pancake. The people nearby, including Rhodes, all stepped back just in time. No one dared to try and catch him. Thankfully, Worm had good cushioning. He rolled over, let out a long snore, and laid flat where he landed. Myra wrapped her arms around Rhodes' neck and asked sweetly, "So? How was it?" Rhodes held her close. "Are you asking about the performance or the costume?" "Both." He thought for a second. "The performance was perfect? Full marks. The costume?" 90 points. Myra narrowed her eyes. "Only 90? Why?" "Well, it looked like a bunny girl outfit, but when I held you, it still felt like your usual dress. It confused my senses." Myra laughed, slipped out of his arms, and returned to her normal appearance. So, he wanted her to wear that outfit again. Not just see it, but probably more. She smirked silently. He could keep dreaming. Maybe she'd consider it later. If looks could kill, Rhodes would have been torn to pieces by the crowd's jealous glares. Next up, contestant number 4. She is both strong and beautiful. Please welcome Fairy Tale's queen, Urza Scarlet. Urza walked onto the stage in her signature armor. Cheers and applause burst out from every corner of the guild. "That's the Fairy Queen. She's amazing. Didn't she model for Sorcerer's Weekly before? She's so beautiful. Yeah, why don't they feature her more often? I'm already looking forward to her next outfit." Urza smiled softly. "I'm best at requip magic, so let me show you some of my treasured styles." To build suspense, Urza slowed her transformation. A brilliant glow of magic enveloped her entire body. It was like watching a magical girl transformation. Though the light was dazzling, no one could look away. Several people leaned forward, squinting at her silhouette. Some of the more imaginative ones had to grab tissues. As the light faded, Urza stood revealed in a gothic Lolita outfit. A large black butterfly clip pulled back her long red hair. Her fair skin contrasted sharply against the black skirt and matching thigh-high stockings. White cuffs and a white blouse added a soft touch, while the snug fit emphasized her graceful figure. Just moments ago, she had been a battle-hardened warrior in armor. Now she looked like an elegant doll straight out of a boutique. The entire guild was stunned. Those overwhelmed by her appearance had to cover their faces, trying to compose themselves. Rhodes was not one of them. He calmly observed the transformation and listened as Myra praised Urza's fashion sense. Myra and Urza had just played back-to-back trump cards, setting the crowd on fire. Unfortunately for the next contestants, Levy and Biska, the bar was now sky-high. Even though both girls were charming in their own right, their performances couldn't match the sheer impact of the previous two. Still, the guild showed support. Jet, Droy, and Alzek cheered as loud as they could for their favorites. Everyone had their own loyal fans. And now, contestant number 7, our guild's rising star, the messenger of the zodiac spirits, Lucy Hartfilia. Lucy walked onto the stage nervously. "Hello everyone. I'm Lucy, and for my performance." A loud chuckle suddenly cut her off. "The word fairy refers to me. The word beauty also refers to me. Of course, the winner is already decided. I am contestant number 8, Evergreen." Lucy turned around and saw a woman in a green dress, waving a folding fan with smug flair. Lucy blinked. She didn't know who this was, but she wasn't about to let someone ruin her performance, especially when she still had rent to pay. "Wait, what is going on? I haven't even started yet." Evergreen dismissed her with a wave. "It doesn't matter. The moment I arrived, this boring contest was already over." As she pushed her glasses up, Evergreen's pupils flashed with golden light. Before Lucy could react, her entire body froze. She turned into a stone statue on the spot. Chapter 428, Fairy Tale's Strongest Battle? Hey, she turned into stone. What's going on? That was weird. Is it part of the show or something? The crowd murmured in confusion. At first, no one suspected anything unusual. After all, this was fairy tale. Turning someone, or even yourself, into stone for dramatic effect wasn't out of the ordinary. But Max, acting as the host, knew better. He recognized it as Evergreen's magic. Judging by her demeanor, she wasn't joking. His instincts flared. Trouble was brewing. "Everyone, please evacuate immediately," he shouted, using his sand magic to form a glowing arrow pointing toward the exits. The civilians, alarmed by his serious tone, began to scatter in panic. They didn't know the details, but clearly something dangerous was happening. That woman might even be staging a terrorist attack. Up on stage, Makarov stood up, his face darkening. "Evergreen. What do you think you're doing? Are you trying to ruin the entire festival?" Evergreen closed her fan with a snap and casually waved her hand. The curtain behind her suddenly burst into flames. As the flames devoured the fabric, 5 stone statues were revealed. Kana, Juvia, Levi, Biska, and Mirza. Everyone had seen Lucy petrified just moments ago, so they quickly realized the truth. Those statues were the other contestants. All the Ms. Fairy Tale participants had been turned to stone, except for Myra, who had luckily jumped off the stage before the attack. Myra gasped, covering her mouth. "No way." Rhodes's eyes narrowed. Evergreen's petrification magic had even worked on Mirza. "Enough of this. Undo the spell, now." Makarov roared, his voice shaking with fury. This was no harmless prank. A blinding bolt of golden lightning struck the center of the stage. In its wake stood Fried and Bixlow, flanking Evergreen. In front of them, arms folded and expression smug, was Lixus Dreyer. "Hey there, Fairy Tale," Lixus said with a smirk. "Looks like the festival's finally getting interesting." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Had Lixus and the Thunder God tribe really ambushed the other contestants backstage and turned them into statues? No one wanted to believe it. Lixus might be arrogant and abrasive, but he was still part of Fairy Tale, and Makarov's grandson. Surely he wouldn't harm his own guildmates. So why was this happening? Lixus clearly enjoyed the stunned expressions. Grinning, he turned to Makarov. "Let's play a little game, Gramps." "This isn't a game, Lixus," Makarov thundered. "Even as a joke, this has gone too far. Turn them back. Now." Another streak of lightning cracked down, grazing the Lucy statue and splintering part of the stage. "I'm not joking, old man." Lixus placed his hand on the petrified Lucy's shoulder. "These girls are my hostages now. If anyone breaks the rules of the game, I'll smash them to pieces." Everyone froze. With his speed and lightning magic, Lixus could destroy a statue before anyone had time to react. There was no way to intercept him in time. Makarov clenched his fists. "What do you want?" Lixus opened his arms dramatically. "Simple. I want to find out who's the strongest in Fairy Tale. From now on, it's survival of the fittest. The last one standing wins." "Just what I was hoping for." Natsu's voice rang out as he leapt forward, charging at Lixus. "Take this, Fire Dragon Iron Fist." Gotta love that enthusiasm. Lixus effortlessly caught Natsu's punch. "Too bad I can't stand your loudmouth attitude." He flung Natsu aside and blasted him with a surge of lightning. The shockwave sent him crashing back, smoke rising from his charred clothes. Natsu. Happy flew over, checking on his partner. Thankfully, Natsu was just scorched and singed, not seriously hurt. "Bit too eager, aren't we?" Evergreen said with a sweet but venomous smile. "Here's the deal," she continued. "If you want these girls back in one piece, you'll have to beat us. You've got 3 hours. Fail, and they'll crumble to dust." Gasps erupted across the guild. "What? Even if you want to have a strongest battle, you don't have to go to this extent, right? Are you serious?" No one answered. Instead, Fried stepped forward to announce the rules. "The battleground will be the entire city. As long as you find us, you're free to engage." Bixlow stuck out his tongue and laughed wickedly. "There are only 4 of us, and you've got nearly 100. Doesn't sound too fair for us, huh?" "Ha. Unfair. Unfair." The 5 floating puppets surrounding him repeated his words in shrill chorus. The black Fairy Tale emblem etched on Bixlow's tongue glinted ominously under the lights. Once the Thunder God tribe had said their piece, they stepped behind Lixus and disappeared through the rear exit of the guild. "This is absurd," Makarov growled, his body beginning to swell as he prepared to transform into his giant form. But Lixus calmly raised his lightning-charged hand to Lucy's petrified neck. "Don't rush, old man. I haven't finished speaking yet." It wasn't just Makarov who was on edge. Elzik had already aimed his rifle, and other mages throughout the guild were preparing to cast spells. But the danger to the petrified girls kept them all frozen in place. Rhodes furrowed his brows so tightly they nearly knotted. He couldn't grasp Lixus's logic. If Lixus wanted to test his strength against the guild's finest, why not just challenge the S-class mages directly? Fairy Tale was full of battle-hungry lunatics. Someone would have answered that call without hesitation. Why go so far as to take hostages and start some twisted version of a battle royale? Was Lixus afraid no one would take it seriously unless lives were on the line? Rhodes locked eyes with him, trying to read what lay behind the storm in Lixus's gaze. Did he truly not care about their comrades' safety? Or was it all just for show, an elaborate bluff? Whatever the truth, things had escalated far beyond the point of no return. With the incident of Levy just days ago, and now this, Lixus was practically daring the guildmaster to expel him. Rhodes couldn't see any gain in this madness. At that moment, Lixus's sharp gaze fell directly on him. Since their brief clash at the construction site, Lixus had marked Rhodes as a threat, the one most aligned with Makarov's values. Not only that, Freed had investigated him. According to the report, Rhodes had inherited more than just magical strength. He embodied the wisdom and strategic mind of the first, and carried the heart of the third. Freed had even suggested recruiting Rhodes into the Thunder God tribe. Lixus scoffed at the idea. Lixus thought that if there was anyone in the guild who could become the next master, it would be this person. The only thing Rhodes lacked was probably his qualifications and strength. Therefore, this person would be the biggest obstacle for Lixus to become guild master, and he had to be defeated completely. Lixus stared hard at Rhodes. From what he could sense, Rhodes's magic power wasn't particularly strong. It barely reached the minimum standard for S-class. Someone like that. Fairy strategist, right? In this upcoming battle, just rely on your clever tactics and lead your little army to try and defeat me. I'll show you how useless your strength is against me. He swept his gaze over the outraged crowd and sneered. But let me warn you in advance, no matter how many you gather, be it 100 or 1,000, trash is still trash. Lixus, you bastard. Who are you calling trash? Let them go. I'll show you real power. Lixus ignored their shouting. Suddenly, a blinding light burst from his hand like a flash bomb. The entire guild was engulfed in brilliant white light. It poured through the windows and doors, forcing everyone to shield their eyes with their hands. In that moment, Lixus vanished into streaks of lightning, leaving behind only one chilling statement: let the battle for Fairy Tale's strongest begin. When everyone opened their eyes again, Lixus was gone. Only 6 petrified girls remained on the stage, frozen with various expressions. A hush fell over the guild. Then someone shouted out, "How dare he look down on us? Want to play hide and seek? Coward. Let's find him and knock him flat." Everyone rushed to act, but Rhodes leapt onto the stage and called out loudly. "Everyone, wait. Stop and listen to me. Rhodes? What is there to talk about right now? Yeah, we should be out hunting them already. It's just 4 of them. What kind of tactics do we even need?" The crowd paused slightly, but angry rebuttals quickly followed. Rhodes raised his voice again. "Now more than ever, you need to stay calm. If you charge out in anger, you're only doing exactly what Lixus wants. We've got the master right here. Myra's still with us. And Miss Togan might appear anytime. Lixus and his team aren't dumb. They wouldn't challenge the entire guild head-on unless they had something up their sleeve. There are definitely traps waiting outside. Don't fall for them. I don't care. I'm going to save Biska. Levy needs us too. Easy for you to say. What if Myra was turned into stone? Would you still be so calm? You think we're just pawns for your strategy games?" The more everyone worried about the petrified girls, the harder it became to think rationally. If Lixus's goal was to provoke the guild into a frenzy, then he was succeeding perfectly. Emotions were boiling over, and no one was willing to stay still. Rhodes knew it too. If Myra had been turned into stone, possibly shattered or worse, turned to dust, he wasn't sure if he could stay calm either. Lixus's parting words echoed in his mind. Whether he truly wanted Rhodes to take charge of the counterattack, or he was trying to sow discord, didn't matter. The crowd's fury had already drowned out any chance of strategy. The most heated reactions came from Alzik, Jet, and Droy. Without another word, the 3 stormed out the front door. The rest soon followed, scattering in every direction to hunt down Lixus and the Thunder God tribe. Whether it was concern for their petrified friends or the sting of Lixus's taunts, everyone acted on raw emotion, just as they always had. The only ones who could stay in the guild were the Master, Myra, Elfman, Gray, Warren, Loki, and a dozen others who were either calm enough or trusted Rhodes. Natsu, having just been knocked out by Lixus, was still lying on the floor, with Happy watching over him. Gagiel was crunching on some iron cutlery again, acting like this had nothing to do with him. Rhodes checked the girls on stage. All 6 were cold and stiff, fully turned to stone. They didn't even look like living people anymore. He turned to Makarov and asked, "Master, Is there any way to reverse the petrification magic? Makarov shook his head. I can't remove it. Maybe Evergreen herself can undo it. Or perhaps poorly Uzuka has medicine that can help. Myra bit her lip and whispered. I'm sorry. If I had been backstage at the time. If you had been back there. Rhodes interrupted gently. There'd probably be one more statue on stage. He reassured her with a calm tone. Even Rizza got caught. It's likely you wouldn't have escaped either. Evergreen took advantage of the fact that no one would expect an attack from the guildmate. You can see it from their surprised expressions. Myra didn't respond. She knew Evergreen could petrify people with her eyes, but she still hadn't been on guard. To use the trust between comrades for a sneak attack. It was cruel and cowardly. It was unacceptable. You're right, Myra. This isn't your fault, it's mine. Makarov said, striding toward the exit, guilt and anger burning in his eyes. He deeply regretted not punishing Lixus more harshly before. Go find poorly Uzuka. Ask if she has a way to reverse the petrification. I'm going to deal with Lixus myself. This time, he is going to face the harshest punishment I can give. I won't show mercy again. His footsteps were heavy with determination. Magic flared around him, his long coat fluttering behind him. For a moment, the full presence of one of the 10 wizard saints filled the hall. And then, wham! He slammed face first into an invisible wall near the door. His cheeks squished comically as if he had run into a glass pane. Everyone stared in shock. Master? What happened? Something's blocking the way. Makarov growled, pressing his hands against the invisible barrier. Even with all his strength, he couldn't break through. Are you serious? But everyone else just ran out a second ago. Suddenly, glowing dark purple text with strange markings shimmered in the air. No passage for statues or individuals over the age of 80. A barrier?